Zoom recording. Okay, so good morning. We're looking at listening skills this morning, Wednesday, February 28th, 24th. And we're talking about capture. That's actually catching the word, and barriers to capture. Lack of focus is a barrier to capture, so make sure you concentrate. Distraction is a barrier to capture. That can be during the exam. You might be looking around you. Some other person might make a noise. Make sure you don't allow other exam takers to distract you. Also, pre-distraction. That means you might be concerned about something in your life before you go in, and you can't give your focus to the listening. Then we have the 3 C's: contraction, compression, and cutting. These are the 3 C's of fluency. You might wonder, how is fluency affecting your listening skills? Well, you'll be listening to people who are fluent, and you may not be familiar with all aspects of their fluency. So an example of the 3 C's of fluency are contraction, compression, and cutting. Okay, contraction, compression, and cutting. An example of that, one that you'll easily recognize, is the phrase "I don't know" being contracted to "I don't know." Okay, I don't know. The contraction "I don't know" is compressed to "I don't know," and the compression "I don't know" is often cut to "don't know." Okay, so people will often send you that. And in English, we have both written and unwritten compressions. And unwritten compressions. So, have you ever seen this before? Don't know. Have you ever seen that written?
No.
You've never seen don't know written? Okay, well, it's a very common written compression. Okay. So all of these words, if you check them in the dictionary or online, they'll pop up, or there'll be a meme, for example. If you go to Google Images, all of these words are written compressions, okay? So there are written and unwritten compressions. These are written, these are written compressions, okay? So examples of written compressions are these. All right. These are written compressions, okay? Unwritten compressions are these, okay? So unwritten compressions are compressions that you'll never see written, but you'll hear them spoken. So for example, okay? Now, these are spoken, okay? These are spoken only. And these are written. In other words, you'll often see these written, okay? What does don't know mean? We saw that already. That means I don't know. What does wanna mean?
I don't want.
I want to. Okay, I want to. Okay. Gonna. Going to. Okay. Gimme.
Give
me. So you'll hear it from favorite songs like "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man After Midnight." Okay. Lemmy.
It's
me. And gotcha. I have got you, or I got you. Okay, often means I understand. Okay, that often means I understand. Okay. Or it can also mean I hit you. If you're playing paintball, okay, you'd say to your friend, gotcha. Okay, it means I hit you. Or it can also mean I caught you. Somebody stealing a cookie. You go, aha, gotcha. okay, and pronounced gotcha. Okay, I got you. So, shouldna is the compressed form of the contraction shouldn't have, which is the full form should not have. So you can guess all of the others. What's this the contraction of?
Wouldn't have.
Wouldn't have. What's this the contraction of?
Would not have.
Could not have. What about this one?
Must not have.
No.
As in,
The one for must not have would be mustna.
Must have.
No. So, for example, when people say most of the time, they'll say most of the time, most of the, most of the, okay? And now you can guess this one. Some of the. So when you're actually listening to people talking in conversational mode, they'll say most of the time, some of the students, okay? So some of the means some of the, okay? You'll notice that of changes to a joins the previous word, and then the becomes like a da, some of the, most of the, most of the, most of that, some of the. Must not have, the have changes to a. So that's quite common for have to change to a also. So mustn't, he must not have come to school today. He must not have got my email. He mustn't have got my email. Okay. So what will happen is these words, first of all, will compress into themselves. And then, for example, which verb form will these be followed by? There's a rule for these.
have.
No, that's have there already squished up into the smoothie. These are like a smoothie, basically, with lots of different words squashed up and liquidized. So have is there. That's have in that last A. What word must come next? Well, it'll have to be past participle, okay? It'll have to be past participle. Okay. So, for example, what's the past participle of come? Hello?
Had come.
Again, Chris?
Come.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Had come.
So come is the past participle of come. So how would you say he would not have come? How would you say that?
You would not come.
That's it. Okay. And you have to say it a little faster because it's all now. Language, what we do is you guys eat the fruit, but we turn it into smoothies. Okay. And it becomes liquidized just because all mixed up together. And that's something that's not often taught formally. And this affects the way in which you speak English. Okay. And when somebody says, is that guy, is that girl, is she Irish? And they go, no. How do you know? Her accent, his accent. Why? Well, is he mispronouncing words? No. Well, is he speaking really slowly? No. Well, what is it? And a lot of non-language people who are not involved in language, can't really put their finger on it to say, well, I don't know. He's got, now the obvious one is accent, for example. So it'd be clear to us from audio only that you'd be African or Japanese. Okay. And then when the Omani guys come on and they start talking, if I couldn't see them or if I knew nothing about them and I had to listen, I'd say, okay, he's Arabic. All right. And then if I listen more carefully, I'll be able to pinpoint whether he's North African Arabic or he's Gulf Arabic, because there's some tricks you can do. Okay. So I can narrow it down, and people who are better than me could narrow it down to the actual country and possibly the town. But that might be somebody who speaks Arabic like a native speaker almost. Okay, now I can do that in English. I can, anybody can, by the way, it's not a skill. But if somebody's from Liverpool, it's very obvious they're from Liverpool. If somebody's from Birmingham, it's very obvious they're from Birmingham. Why? Well, we see a lot of TV programs where people are like Peaky Blinders, they're from Birmingham. So the Birmingham accent is quite well known. Okay. Football also is fantastic for spreading names. There's a lot of African names that nobody's ever heard of that are quite well known now because there's a famous footballer with those names. And people just say those names like they're a normal name because we hear them on the radio so much. And people who are fans of football also find themselves saying those names quite often, you know. So how would you compress he could not have been here, Iomi?
He couldn't have been here.
Correct. So he couldn't have been here. So when we're speaking been, you can spell it with a K or a C, whatever you want to do, because it's unwritten anyway. Okay. These are never written. But when you show the unwritten, the spoken only compressions in their written form, which sounds crazy because I just told you they're unwritten. When you show them in their unwritten form, students' pronunciation and flow of delivery absolutely improve by a massive percentage. Okay, so give that to me again, Iomi.
He couldn't have been here.
He couldn't have been here. And then the been will be pronounced as the bin, as in the rubbish bin, or Osama bin Laden. Okay, that bin sound. It's not like Mr. Bean. Okay, and a lot of people are surprised by that, and they check the dictionary. They go, "My God, it is. It's supposed to be bin." But because the language is so global, that is one pronunciation. If you say bean, that's okay. Don't worry about that. That's absolutely fine. But the dictionary, which is very regional, it's very narrow. How would you say he must not have got my email, Faith? He must not have got my email.
Must not.
What's the past participle of get?
Got.
Now, you'll often find that the last words are not compressed. It's not a guarantee, but you'll notice a pattern that when we're compressing, it tends to be in here. So must not have becomes mustna, but then got also joins the party. The word that comes after the compression magnetically connects to it. So how would you now say that word?
He must not got my email.
Fantastic. He mustn't have got my email. All right. So that's an example of how people speak. He mustn't have got my email. Now, will you ever see that written in a WhatsApp message? Absolutely not. Will you ever see this written in a WhatsApp message? Of course, you'll see that all the time. But you'll never see these written. However, the way we've written them here is absolutely correct. Okay, it's absolutely correct. How would you say most of the time, for example, most of the time I want to be with my friends? How would you say that?
Most of the time.
Mm-hmm. I want to be with my friends.
I want to be with my friends.
So most of the time I want to be with my friends. Okay. So there we see two compressions, a written compression and a non-written compression, now written, okay? And most of the time becomes most of the time, okay? Some of the time I don't know what to do.
Some other time I don't know what to do.
Good.
I don't know.
So some of the time I don't know what to do. So compressions are a large part of barrier to capture. Okay. When we're talking about listening skills here, there is capture. So words are like fish in the ocean. If you want to enjoy fish, you've got to eat the fish. If you want to eat the fish, you've got to catch the fish. If you want to catch the fish, you've got to reach in and put your net in the water. What's a barrier to putting that net in the water? Okay, that's stopping you catching the fish. All right, fish are slippery, so they can slip out of your hands. Well, words can be slippery because of contraction, compression, and cutting. This makes our words slippery like fish. Okay, and this can be a barrier to capture. Okay, this can be a barrier to capture. All right. Speaking and other barriers to capture, by the way, are speaking speed and accent. And accent. Accent is really just a form of regional compression. That's all accent is. So we saw that last week when we were looking at some of the London videos, okay? And if you've been looking online, if you've been on the platform, you'll see a lot of the Dublin videos as well. So in the upcoming test, accent, compression, informal speaking, formal speaking, these will all be part of your, test really. We'll be testing your skills in that regard, okay? So that's accent. It's a form of regional compression. All right. Now, after you've got capture under your belt, okay, after you got capture, you'll need another skill. Okay. So when you eat the fish, you taste the fish, you digest the fish, you get the energy of the protein from the fish. Okay. Well, after capture, you then go to, so when you eat the fish, you digest it, and the digestion and the creation of energy in your body from that, well, the digestion is visualization. When you digest words, either through reading or listening, you visualize them, okay? So for example, you create, it's a very simple process. It's not always easy, but it's very simple. You create a video or a picture in your mind. You create a video or a picture in your mind. So you visualize something, okay? Now, after the whole process of digestion, there's the energy buildup in your body and of the fish. Well, if we continue that analogy, extended visualization is what you're asked for in university, okay? To extrapolate certain facts that are not stated but can be inferred. What does infer mean? What does infer mean? Okay, that's understood, okay, but in an abstract, in an indirect way. So if I said, good morning, who joined us there? Good morning, Mohanna, can you hear us?
Yeah, good morning.
If I said, be careful about leaving your watch on the desk when Mohanna's around, you know, sticky fingers, okay? Now, I did not say Mohanna is a thief, but you could infer that I implied that, okay? Infer is understanding, and by the way, this is a common mistake between by native speakers. Imply is to suggest indirectly, and infer is to understand. Sorry. in an indirect way. So infer means to understand in an indirect way. Okay. A common mistake by students is if somebody says, if I say that about Mahana should say to me, excuse me, what are you implying? That's a very formal way to start an argument, okay? That's correct, okay? What are you implying? Sometimes native speakers, through bad habits, through monkey see, monkey do, they might say, what are you inferring?
What are you trying to say?
Yes, the informal way, exactly. Mahana says, what are you trying to say? Okay. But if you're having an argument with, say, it was a lecturer and you said, excuse me, what are you inferring? That's actually monkey. You shouldn't say that. That's wrong. Okay. Because that means, what are you trying to understand? Huh? That sentence doesn't make any sense. But this sentence does exist. This is not uncommon. Okay. This is not uncommon. This is a not uncommon mistake among native speakers. And you might hear that even from a lecturer, but that's a monkey sentence, okay? Because you infer, they imply. The person who speaks implies, the person who listens infers, okay? So sometimes, some teachers might call this kind of extended visualization, that they might call it inference skills as well, okay? Extended visualization is often called inference skills, okay? So for example, it might not be said directly, but you can infer this, okay? But just be careful of that mistake. What are you implying means what are you saying, okay? This means what are you suggesting? What are you saying? It's often quite a negative, argumentative. What are you suggesting? What are you saying? Okay. So if somebody made a comment that you might think was racially insensitive, insensitive to women, insensitive to Africans, insensitive to Omanis, Japanese, you might say, excuse me, what are you implying? Okay. So this excuse me would be put in as a sharp knife as well. Okay. So be careful if you do use it, you are starting a fight. You have pulled out your knife. Okay. So do be aware of that, please. And what are you inferring? Don't say that. Okay. Because it doesn't mean what do you mean? Okay. But for some reason, it's a habit that has developed amongst native speakers, and I don't want you to pick that up, okay? So be careful about that. So inference skills will be the next thing. So I want you to all pay attention and listen very carefully, okay? I'm going to tell you a very brief story of less than 30 seconds long, and I'm going to ask you for some visualization and extended visualization or inference questions afterwards. Are you ready? Pay attention. Here we go now. Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Heidi. She lived with her grandma and granddad in a small wooden cabin on the hills of a beautiful meadow in Austria. Behind her, there were very high mountains, and she would look after sheep in the meadows. And every day she would pick flowers and run through the tall grass and play with her little doll while she helped her granddad look after the sheep. And in the evenings, they would all sit together in on the porch and look at the sunset. End of story. What color did you see in that story?
Green.
Okay, very good. What color is their house?
Brown.
Very good, very good. What time of year was it?
Spring.
Spring, okay, yeah, that's fine. Spring, if you'd said spring or summer, I would be happy. Now, I didn't mention the seasons, okay? I was very careful not to mention the season. Now, those of you who majorly said, now I know one of you answered, but some of you may have just known the answer and were sitting quietly. Those of you who said, what color did you see? Green. What color is their house? Brown. Okay, now I didn't tell you the fields were green, and I didn't tell you their house was brown. Now, my house is gray. How did you know her house was brown?
It's a wooden house.
Yes, it was a wooden house, and I said a wooden cabin. Okay, so it's one of those high-tech wooden houses that has all glass, but the story didn't imply that. Okay, the story didn't imply that. So the story implied that she was what were the evenings? What was the weather like in the evenings?
Sunny.
Yes,
Warm.
it was clear, warm, sunny weather because they watched the sunset. If it was raining, they wouldn't sit on a porch. But you inferred that, okay? I didn't tell you that there was no rain. I just said they sat on the porch and watched the sunset, okay? And maybe it was a rainy sunset. But again, the story didn't imply that, did it? The story implied that it was nice weather. As a quick question, here's a very extended visualization skill. What color hair does Heidi have?
What's that?
What color hair does Heidi have in the story? I don't expect everyone to get this. Where does Heidi live? In what country?
Australia on the hill.
No, I didn't say Australia.
Australia. Leah.
Australia.
Leah. No,
Which country? No, it's not
Australia.
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 No, there's no country called Astoria. I know you know the one. It's the one beside Germany, right?
Yeah.
Austria.
Yes.
Very good. Austria. And Austrians call it Austria. So don't be surprised if some people say Austria and English language speakers say Austria, okay? So she's from Austria. What color hair does she have?
Blonde.
You racist. How do you know she's blonde? Okay. So you can't win. But yes. And there is a famous girl called Heidi. And she's a famous character in fairy tales. And if you put in Heidi, Heidi's a common German name as well. Heidi Klum is a famous actress. But Heidi is a children's book, especially for girls. Girls loved it when they were kids. And it was about the little girl who lived in the woods. And there's the cabin. There's the cabin you imagined. Now, in this story, Heidi, for some reason, has suddenly got brown hair. But the original Heidi, yes, there is the little girl. There's Heidi with her blonde hair and her little pigtails, okay? There's the fields you imagined. And I said there was high mountains in the background. Now, isn't it interesting? I didn't even see this picture. I've just Googled this now. And there's the high mountains in the background. Sometimes I ask students what color are the high mountains. And sometimes students get that they'll be white, okay? But there's Heidi running around and she's doing stuff. So the cartoon Heidi and the more modern Heidi, they've moved away from this suggestion that she has from blonde hair. But all the older movies and the older TV series, she kind of had fair hair, I suppose, you know. So there you'd see all of those there, Heidi, okay? But yes, there's no guarantee that Heidi would have blonde hair, but because you heard Austria, mountains, and things like that, you suggested blonde hair, okay? And look at the mountains in the background, and there's the green, and there's the house. So you imagined it just like the movie poster. But did I show you any pictures? No, I didn't. Have you heard of Heidi before yourselves?
No.
Yes.
You might have come across her, yeah. So when you were little kids, it might have been a TV program or something like that. So what happened there? Well, what we did there was capture. Basically, you made sure that the words I said went into your head. And that's very simple. It's not always easy, but it's very simple. Was there any barrier to capture? Nope. Everything went very well there. You were all paying attention. You said you listened to what I said, and you let it in. After you let it in, you started digesting it. How? Through visualization. I checked your visualization. I asked you what color the fields were. I asked you what color the cabin was. Okay. And there was some inference skills in that. Although I didn't tell you the color, you were able to infer the color. And then there's a range of extension of understanding. Was Heidi a happy child in your picture?
Yes.
No, actually, she was beaten every day by her grandfather. He was a wicked man. No, that's not true. You're absolutely right. From what I told you, Heidi had a very carefree life. And that's the kind of extended visualization or inference skills that you're asked to give. Okay. Now, sometimes exams will really pressurize you on this, and they'll say yes, no, not given. Okay. And the yes, no, not given questions limit your extended visualization or inference skills. And they say, no. Be very careful here now. I'm not interested in what you visualized and what you might think. And they're bringing it back into a more legalized, academic, scientific process. Did they actually say that? Okay. Did they actually say that? And then they'll explore different aspects of your listening skills, more scientific, more academic, more legal way of thinking. All right. And that's why certain questions that's why people find the listening quite difficult sometimes. How many of you have done the listening? Iomi, do you remember what score you got in the listening?
What's called? Sorry.
Do you remember what score you got on the listening in IELTS?
You mean the point?
Yeah.
It was quite low, I think.
All right. Okay. And do you have any memory of the listening section in the exam and how you felt in there? Did you feel overwhelmed by the amount of information that was coming to you?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and that's something that you have to understand as well, that the volume of information that comes at you. That's why native speakers, I guarantee you, I would not score band 9 in the IELTS listening. Absolutely not. There's no way I would, because I've done the IELTS listening several times with my students. I've never done the actual exam, but I guarantee you, if I went up on some Saturday, we all went up on a minibus to Dublin, and I was sitting over there and you were sitting here and we're all doing the exam. And when the results would come out, your teacher would not come out with 9, 9, 9, 9. Okay, I wouldn't, absolutely not. I wouldn't get 9 in the reading either, because there's just too much information and not enough time. So the exam is designed really to catch everybody, and it's possible to get band 9. I mean, I personally wouldn't get band 9. I know plenty of native speakers who would. In fact, I think Muhanna, I was bringing you downtown to the bank one day, and a Spanish girl, one of my former clients, just came along to visit me without planning. I couldn't believe she was in town. And were you with us that day, Muhanna?
Yeah, I was with you.
And she got band 9 in one of the sections. I think it was reading. But she's just had that personality where she was fantastic with detail, really good with detail. And but she didn't get band 9 and everything, obviously. But there's an example of a Spanish person who did, Spanish person who did. But I know that personally I wouldn't. So one of my students would beat me in the listening skill now, in the reading skills. Is her English better than mine? No, it's not. Okay. So how can she beat you?
Yeah.
She's able to focus more than I am, and she can do it in a shorter time frame. But I know that I would get caught on the time. If I had 2 hours to do the reading exam, oh yeah, maybe, I think so. If I could hear the listening twice, oh yeah, I think I'd get band 9 that way, yeah. So don't beat yourselves up. Native speakers often score lower than you do. And that's true. I know some doctors who are extremely intelligent. They're specialized. They're not just general medicine doctors, they're specialized. And they could not get over 6.5 in the reading, okay? And it's because I suppose their mind is used to focusing on a very specialized area. So when they're asked to read an article about building airports on islands near China, it's just so boring for them that they find it difficult to commit to that. So there are lots of barriers to your skills. And in listening, some of the barriers to skills will be things like lack of focus, distraction, and you might be a person who's not very focused in general. I've often met people like that. They just cannot commit to listening to something over a longer period. If I say something about Heidi that lasts 30 seconds, sure, no problem. They can commit to that. But in the next listening I'm going to give you, we're going to see somebody speaking and we're going to ask ourselves how much we can commit to this. Okay, how much we can commit to this. So we're going to have a look at this. You'll probably recognize this guy. Who's this guy?
The Taoiseach.
He's the Taoiseach. Think of a cup of tea, spilling it on electrics, and you get a shock. The Taoiseach is the Prime Minister of Ireland. We never say Prime Minister here in Ireland because I suppose of our history with the British. We refuse to use a lot of British words for our things. So you'll notice that everything is written in Irish and English. We use the English for a lot of Irish people, to be honest. Most of us don't speak Irish much anymore. Now that we're homeschooling our children a lot, we have to relearn a lot of the old Irish, but we're okay at the 6-year-old Irish. If we're doing 17-year-old Irish, you know, for our Leaving Cert students, we have to hire somebody to help us with that. But in all of our government communication, you'll always see it written in Irish and English. So down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll say Rialtas na hÉireann, okay? Which means, as you can see, you don't need to be a rocket science, you don't need me, means Government of Ireland. So Rialtas is the Irish word for government. Na means of, and hÉireann is the spelling. When we use na, it has to use a H. Normally the spelling of Ireland is Éireann, okay? What do you notice about the emblem of Ireland? Do you notice what that is?
Yes.
What is that instrument called?
Forwarding the name.
It's a harp, okay?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that as a company logo anywhere?
Yes, yes, on Guinness.
Which one was first, do you think?
Sorry?
Which one was first, the emblem of Ireland or the logo of Guinness?
The emblem.
No, the logo of Guinness. In fact, the state, when we started the Free State, we had to get an agreement from Guinness to allow us to use the harp. What's the difference between the Guinness harp and the government harp?
The background color.
No, try again.
The design.
It's the other way around, okay? So if you get a letter from the government or if you get a letter from immigration, that symbol will be the belly of the harp. You see the belly of the curve of the harp will be to the left, but a Guinness harp, the belly is to the right, okay? So if you get a letter to say, oh, it's a letter from Guinness. No, it's just my tax details, okay? It's my PPS number. It's not an invitation to drink Guinness all day. So that's something to remember, okay? It's a small detail. You never know. You can impress some guy or some girl with that someday, that story. All righty. Now, by the way, what about whiskey? How would you know whiskey is from Ireland and not from Scotland?
Oh, I think it's still available.
Something to do with the spelling.
I'm not much in the field.
Okay, well, let's look at
Oh,
Jameson.
Scotland, it has Scotch.
Sorry?
Say again, Faith?
The Scotland whiskey, they say Scotch whiskey.
That's correct. But how would you know it just by looking at the word? Well, let's look at a bottle of whiskey. Okay, let's look at a bottle of whiskey. And let's see if we can get a nice high resolution picture. What resolution is this? Is it a good resolution? Let's have a look. So this is one of our more famous bottles, I suppose. It's the one that people off, if you're going home to your dad, you'd bring him a bottle of Jameson. Okay. Not too expensive, but nice, great gift for your mom or dad. Because, of course, my mom doesn't drink whiskey. Oh, Irish coffee? Are you crazy? Women go crazy for Irish coffee. You put a little in with cream, and you should learn how to make Irish coffee, impress your friends when you come home. But for the moment, how about the spelling? Can we grab that? Or is that too blurred? Can you see it there? How can you spell whiskey?
With an E.
E, whiskey with an E. But if we say, for example, Johnny Walker. Let's get a bottle of Johnny Walker up there and find out how Johnny Walker is spelt. So where is Johnny Walker? Let's try and see if this is a good picture. Which label are you more likely to buy for your dad? Black label, blue label, or red label? If you're going home and you're bringing your uncle a gift or some person that's special to you a gift, well, you're highly unlikely to buy blue label because it's about €100 per glass. Okay. It's extremely expensive. Red label is the one that most people can afford. Now, what? Nah, this is very poor, but let me see. Johnny Walker. Maybe this one will be a better picture. Their font is quite cursive. Okay, you don't want to go red grouse, I'll call it. Okay, so Google, you see, the AI isn't as interested in this rule. Okay, so there's red grouse. Their font might be easier to read. And how do you think their whiskey will be spelt?
Without an E.
Without an E. Okay, so that's just a little detail that might interest you as a language student, that Scotch whiskey has no E and Irish whiskey has an E. Okay, how about American? The Americans, as I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but they follow the Americans follow the what you call it? And interesting, SuperValu is an Irish brand. Look, and whoever works on the SuperValu website has put this in with an E. But of course, the label will not have an E. The label's going to have no E. So I can't zoom in on the label enough, I'm afraid, to get. Can I zoom in? I wonder. 600 by 600. That'll be very low. Let's see if we can try. No. No, even smaller. Anyway, you'll just have to take my word on it. I'm not going to waste loads and loads of time trying to get the whiskey word. But yes, Scotch whiskey will be spelt without an E, okay? Without an E. So Famous Grouse is Scotch and Jameson is Irish, okay? And if you ever go into a shop, just have a look through the bottles and you'll see that. Okay, so that's something you can tell your friends about the next time you're making them an Irish coffee. So let's have a look at, have you ever had Irish coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Where did you have it?
In the IT.
The IT. You had Irish coffee in the IT. You drank
think.
alcohol. You drank alcohol in the IT.
Coffee. I'm talking.
No. I was very specific. I said Irish coffee. Okay. What's in Irish coffee?
I like cream coffee.
That's right. It's first of all, you put in your coffee, your sugar, some honey, and then you pour in your whiskey on top. You mix it all together. And then after you've poured in your whiskey and it's melting the sugar and the honey together, you pour in your hot water. Okay. Then you put in a spoon to take away a lot of the heat. And you then add some cream on the top with little chocolate flakes and sprinkles, whatever you like. And that's called Irish coffee. And people who aren't big drinkers, for example, people who say, I don't really drink alcohol, they might have that at Christmas. And it's quite nice. It's quite nice, you know. Can I ask you a question? Remember I said that the belly on the state harp is to the left. Why is the belly on this state harp to the right? It's a very logical reason. A child would know this. You've got to think like a child here.
It's a reflection when the other like.
Can't hear you there. Why is the belly to the right? See the belly, the curved part? I told you that that's the Guinness label. That's the Guinness symbol if the curve is to the right. In the government symbols, the curve is to the left. This picture is for people outside looking in, not for people inside looking out. Okay. That's why, because on the outside of the building, that belly is to the left. And that's for everybody looking in through the building. They'll be able to see the lights on inside. It's not for people looking out. So people looking out see the Guinness symbol, but people looking in see the state symbol. All right, now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to listen to this. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that in your exam, there might be one visual question where you'll be seeing it as a video. But in fact, for the majority of your questions in the listening test that I'm going to give you, they're going to be non-video, okay? They will be audio only. So I'll just basically record an audio and I'll put it up online, okay? So it might be useful for you if you didn't look at this or if you change the picture to something else on the screen and just listened to it, okay? Because I'm allowing you, of course, to listen to this. I could take the picture off, but I'm going to leave it for the moment so that you can see and hear. Now, this is the Taoiseach of Ireland, and yesterday evening he gave a speech to the country. So do you think he'll be speaking very quickly, conversationally?
No, not really.
Not really. He'll be speaking in a rather presentation format, okay? But there may still be some compression, okay? There may still be some compression. Let's have a listen.
Díomh go léir.
So, he's just spoke Irish there. Díomh go léir means God be with you, and go léir means everybody, okay? So, Irish as a language is like Arabic. It's very closely connected to God, okay? And for example, Giagwich means hello, but translated directly, it means God be with you. And the answer to Giagwich, like salam alaikum, alaikum salam, if you're speaking in Arabic, we say Giagwich, and the person answer Gia Ismuragwich, which means God and Mary be with you. So Mary, the mother of Jesus, is an important figure in Irish culture, like a mother. We're very much we're big into our mothers here in Ireland. So when people say hello in Irish, so from your perspective as foreigners, most languages now are very non-religious. They evolve to remove these words from the religion. But Irish stays very much in a traditional role and does not remove these. So our language, our hello, is Giagwich, which means God be with you. And our response to that hello is Gias Muragwich, which means God and Mary be with you. Okay. Why? Well, why is Mary important? We see Mary as somebody who could, if we're sinners, the thing about Catholic religion, and it's important for you to know this as well, it accepts that we're very human. Okay. It accepts, now you mightn't see this in the history of the Catholic Church, that might have a dark history, but the Catholic religion, okay, the philosophy of the religion is very much that people are sinners. We're very weak. We do bad stuff all the time, and that God will ultimately forgive us if we ask for that forgiveness. And the reason that Mary is an important role in this, the mother of Jesus, is that she was a very forgiving person, and she understood, she's very compassionate. So there's this concept in the Muslim religion, you speak directly to God, okay? And we do sometimes as well. But as part of our religion, the idea of Mary interceding with God, that sometimes we feel we're not worthy to speak to God. So we'd ask Mary to speak to God on our behalf. So that's this logic. Okay, this isn't I'm not trying to convert you or give you any superiority about religion. I'm trying to give you the reason why in Irish language they see we use God as a thing. So it's an interesting concept. A lot of our modern colleagues in this flag will be moving away from religion, whereas this flag stays very much towards religion. This flag is very similar to another European flag and is based on another European flag. Does anybody know which European flag? That's not the same color, but it's the same color scheme.
Italy.
It looks like the Italian colors, but they're the other way around. When you see the Irish flag, the flag pole, the wooden part, has green to the closest part. It's red for Italy over here, but there's an African country that has the opposite, that it's orange, white, and green. It's
Morocco.
no, it's not Morocco.
Morocco?
It's lower down. I think it's Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire. Okay.
Let me just double check map of
Oh,
Côte
yeah.
d'Ivoire. Is it?
Yes.
Is it
Even
Côte d'Ivoire?
India.
India has a
Yeah, and
symbol
India
in the
too,
middle.
yeah.
They have a symbol in the
Yeah.
white part in the middle. But Côte d'Ivoire, oh, there we go. Country in West Africa. Okay. So their flag, there we go, is orange, white, and green. And ours is green, white, and orange. Now we say green, white, and gold, but it is actually orange because the orange is the color of Protestantism and green is the color of nationalism. And what country do you think gave us the flag? It wasn't Côte d'Ivoire, okay? But the name of Côte d'Ivoire is
French word.
it's French, yeah. So it was France who gave us that flag because France had their own Republican revolution where they went from a king to a government. And Britain really was the first country that did that. Everybody says, "Oh, it's France." Not really. Britain had a thing with King Charles the First and Charles the Second. They were just having a ball of a time. They were having a good old time, and they had too much power. And a guy called Cromwell changed all that in Britain, and they killed the king. They actually had the king beheaded. Okay. Charles the First was beheaded. And then Cromwell ran England. Not very good guy, killed thousands and thousands of people, especially here in Ireland. Oliver Cromwell killed thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. He was like Adolf Hitler to us. I'll just show you his name, Oliver Cromwell. Okay, this was Oliver Cromwell. So show some pictures. You're not interested in the words. And this guy, to Irish culture, was horrific, absolutely horrific. He was a murderer. He killed thousands of people. And in British history, this guy is still regarded quite highly by some people, you know. Now, he killed their own king. So some people who have a Republican sensibility might admire him. But this guy killed thousands and thousands of people in Ireland, and he stole a huge amount of land. A huge amount of land. So when he came to Ireland, he gave people an option. What are the 4 provinces of Ireland? You know how many counties there are? Do you know how many provinces there are? Anybody? Well, 4. There are 4 provinces of Ireland in Ireland, okay, and they have 4 symbols. So there are 32 counties, and they have 4 symbols. Which one do you live in?
Third one.
Degree.
Well, what's the name?
Connacht.
Connacht. You live in Connacht. There you live right there. Okay, let me open this up in a new tab so that we can see it. So you live here in Connacht, and you live very close to the edge of Connacht. Our closest northerly neighbour is Ulster, and then the province of Leinster is mostly the east, and then the province of Munster is in the south. You'll recognise Munster in rugby, if anybody is a rugby fan. Is that Guinness or the state?
No, the government.
It's the government, and it's also the symbol of Leinster. Okay, so the symbol of Connacht is an eagle with a sword, an arm and a sword. The red hand is the symbol of Ulster. The harp is the symbol of Leinster. Where do you think all the best farming land is in Ireland?
The green one.
Yeah, the best farming land is here. So, for example, the emir, is it the emir or the king? Maktoum from Dubai. Is he prince or emir? Sultan?
Sheikh.
Sheikh Maktoum. He has at least 2 farms here in Ireland. Okay, that's how the top racehorse breeding in the world would be here, especially in Europe. So Sheikh Maktoum has some farms here. Okay, so when Cromwell landed in Ireland, he wanted this part and this part, and of course here was a big part as well, because that's where the Titanic was built, up here, and this has very good farming land as well. Which do you think is the really crappy farming land?
Crappy.
Connacht they were not interested in. It was too far from the seaports. Remember, There were no buses and trains back in those days, so they wanted to be on the eastern part, close to Britain. Even then, it didn't take long to get to Britain by sailboat. You could be in Britain in a couple of hours. If you left at night, you could be there the following morning. And you could sail across, especially down here. This is the closest part to Britain, really. It connects to Wales, so that's a common Rosslare there. And yeah, they weren't interested in Connacht. So when he came to these places and he invaded our country, big league, okay, he said to people, he'd give them an option: to hell or to Connacht. Okay. Now, in Ireland, that's a very common phrase to this day. Okay. Some people use it as a joke today, because people from Dublin would joke to people in Sligo that they come from a small area, you know, there's no good Wi-Fi down there, and they might say to hell or to Connacht. But this came from a very dark part of our history, 1652, as you can see there. Connacht has this beautiful landscape, but if you're trying to, let's imagine there was a zombie apocalypse and you survived it and you needed to plant food and raise cattle and all that kind of stuff, Connacht isn't exactly the best place for it, okay? And it was very poor. But if you wanted to, you know, farmland over here, that was really good quality. So to hell or to Connacht was what Cromwell said, okay, to these people. He said, I'll give you a choice. I'll kill you right now, or you can all move to Connacht. And my father told me that that's how we came to Connacht, that our family was originally from Munster. And in the 1600s, we moved up here. And we've been on the same farm since 1652, okay? Or the 1650s, basically. We moved up here and we settled on the farm we live on today. And this is Oliver Cromwell. On this day, 1652, the law passed which confiscated estates in the east of Ireland to hell or to Connacht. So when he walked in, like say Mohana has a lovely place up beside the Mactombs, and Cromwell arrived and said, "Who are you?" And you go, "Well, I'm Mohana, I'm from a man." "Well, you're out, okay, I can't get rid of Mactomb, but you're gone for a start." So you had to walk down the road, leave with just the clothes on your back, and they walked into your house and took everything, okay? It's that simple. So you can understand how our history with Britain is not a happy one, okay? Is not a happy one. And sometimes when foreigners come in and hear the stories, they go, "They did what?" Okay, now our modern relationship with Britain is a much more productive one. We see where we work together more as neighbors, but we haven't forgotten our history, okay? We haven't forgotten our history. And as you can see from a lot of the pictures of history, when these guys came ashore at Drogheda, these guys murdered women and children and all that kind of stuff. You know, it was shocking what they did, okay? Shocking. And they pretty much stole all the goodness out of Ireland, you know what I mean? They took the best of everything and they left the worst to the rest of us. So that by 200 years later, in 190 to 200 years later, in the 1840s, Ireland was just, we had everything sucked out of us. You know, we had never a chance to develop our own country. We always had these English guys coming in at various stages, just invading us and taking stuff, just literally saying, "You're out, this is mine now, and bye-bye." Okay, and then they'd build even bigger houses. And it bothers me sometimes when we, go out to places like Markree Castle. Have you ever gone out to Markree Castle? No? You should someday. Markree Castle is about 15 minutes drive from Sligo. And it's beautiful. Look at that. And it's a hotel now. You can go there and get coffee. And it's really nice. But built with the blood of thousands and thousands of people, and looks lovely today, and you can drink your coffee there. But just take in a little bit of the history where all that money comes from. Ask yourself, if you were willing to murder people and just take their stuff, of course you could build beautiful houses. You could achieve anything, you know? Like if you have an iPhone today, that's because people in China are treated like shit, so that you can have that iPhone. And that when Steve Jobs died, he had more cash in the bank than the American government, or Apple had more cash in the bank. But yeah, these are popular locations for couples to get married. So it's a very popular location for weddings. But it is a nice hotel. It's got a very castle atmosphere. If you want to get some nice photos, it's about 15 minutes from Sligo. If 4 of you went together, you could afford the taxi probably, and you could go out there, and there's a bar. You could have a pint of Guinness there. You could have a coffee there, and you can just walk in and get a coffee. You know, there's a big fire in the fireplace, and I think I see here a lot of people get married here for their weddings. That's the stairs. When you go in the front door, you go up these stairs and to the right. And if you want to get that atmosphere, that's very close by to you. You don't have to go around the countryside to find it. You might maybe just check their website to make sure they're open now. You know, with COVID, things might have changed, etc. But for you as tourists, interesting place to go, lovely place for photos, you know, it'll be a nice day out for you. Do try and remember all the poor people that died so that could happen, you know. They didn't build all these high walls for nothing, you know. It was to stop the people who really own this land from taking it back, you know. But maybe in 150 years, we'll be going to drug dealers' houses and human traffickers' houses, and we'll be going, oh, isn't it so beautiful? I want to get married here.
JJ,
Yeah.
so all the castle in Ireland, like when I was reading also on Bali Castle, the one that has the eloquent, you can kiss the stone of eloquency. Does it mean
yes,
that?
yeah.
Does it mean that all the castle were built by the British Empire?
The vast majority. The last royal families, these were called the Flight of the Wild Geese. Okay. Sorry, no, not that one. Flight of the Earls. The last kind of what we would call Irish nobility. We never had one king, you know. We had families that were bigger than other families, and they looked after the poorer families. Now, listen, let's not be silly, you know. Just because they were Irish doesn't mean they were perfect. It's like when you hear about Africa, for example, and people from Africa, you know your own history, right? And are you telling me before slavery, before the white guys came and introduced slavery, there was no slavery in Africa? Or everything was perfect all the time and no group was killing another group? Come on now.
It was.
Of course. And the same in Ireland. Like, you know, don't think that, oh, everything was perfect before the English came. There would have been gangs fighting each other, families fighting each other. But the last of these families were called the Earls, and they had to go to Spain. Okay. I think it was this isn't me knowing my history. That was 1607. Okay.
Yes.
And all of these guys lost in a battle. And I think it was Queen Elizabeth was queen at the time. I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that. And she gave them a choice. Just like later, Oliver Cromwell would give people the chance to move to Connacht or die. She said, you can get out of the country or die. And Spain was a Catholic country at the time, and Spain says, we'll take you in. Okay, hopefully thinking that one day we'll invade England again. Okay. Are you familiar with the term the Spanish Armada? Spanish Armada was the largest fleet of ships in the world at the time of Queen Elizabeth's reign. Okay. And do you know who Queen Elizabeth's father was?
Not really.
Okay, so Queen Elizabeth's father was Henry VIII. Do you know why Henry VIII was famous?
Henry
Any idea? Very famous. Look, when I said Henry, VIII came up first. There's Henry VIII, okay? Now that's him as an older man, okay? But when Henry was born, when Henry was young, he was very handsome, okay? And Henry was never meant to become king, but his older brother was king. I think it was Edward was his name. And Edward died in a horse riding accident, okay? These guys were always tearing around on horses. I think it was a horse riding accident he died in. Could have been in battle, I'm not sure. And Henry's father, Henry VII, said, right, Henry, you're up. You're next in line. Your brother's dead. You've got to be king. Okay. Similar to Queen Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth's dad. The current Queen Elizabeth. Her dad was never supposed to be king, but his brother met an American woman and said, this is my girlfriend. And the British government said, hang on a second, she was divorced. And he goes, yeah, I know, but no big deal. And the British government said, oh, no. You get rid of her or you're not going to be king. And he said, fine, I won't be king. I love her and I'm not giving her up. So, and they said, right, well, you're not going to be king. And they went to his brother, King, and they made him King George VI, I think, or George VIII. And he then became king. And Queen Elizabeth was a small girl at the time. And her father had to take over. And you'll see him in lots of movies. There's lots of movies about that. But it was a big story from a human perspective that he didn't want to take over. Anyway, back a couple of hundred years, this is Henry VIII. Henry VIII has to become king, so he has to marry his brother's wife. Okay? He has to marry his brother's wife, his dead brother's wife. All right? And why do you think there's a picture of 6 women there?
Polygamy?
No. Henry wasn't going to do that.
Who was the change the church? Because
he changed the church, all right, yeah. But Tudors, Henry VIII, the Tudors. There's a very kind of sexy version of this history. If you're like, you might be going, oh, I'm not interested in history. Oh, if you watch the Tudors, I'm telling you, it gets very interesting. Let's put it that way. It's a bit like The Sopranos, really. It's a thing. So the story was, now this affects the reason why you're here in Ireland today, okay? So if you think this has nothing to do with you, oh, you're wrong. So in history, here are the 6 wives. He had 6 wives, okay? And these are the women who played them. You recognize her from Game of Thrones, of course. And some of the others are quite famous as well. And Henry married these. So when his brother dies, he's not king yet, the brother, but he's going to be king. His widow is older than Henry, and she's the Spanish king's aunt, I think. I think she's his aunt. King. Now, at the time, Spanish king is like Obama or Trump or Biden. He's the #1 guy in the world, okay? The most powerful. Spain was the seat of power at this time, okay? This is why, good morning, Pedro. This is why Emer speaks Spanish, okay? Not a Honduran language, okay? Because Spain went across the sea because they had all these ships. And this is deeply connected to Sligo. So if you're based in Sligo right now, this is hugely connected, okay, to everything you're doing and to a lot of Irish people you know, okay, and the reason that you're here speaking English. So these are the historical pictures, and every child is taught a little rhyme to remember what happened to each of the wives. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. Okay, that's what every child is taught in school. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. Everybody?
Divorced,
Divorced, beheaded,
Beheaded,
ching, beheaded. Oh shit! Sorry,
Died.
what did I do? I pressed some button. Monkey teacher. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. So every three he started a new pattern, but the last one outlived him. The last one survived him. Something bad happened to Henry. Something bad that, as a man in my late 40s now, I can appreciate. Henry had an accident, and he damaged his leg, and he was in huge pain. They could never fix his leg after it was a horse riding accident. So he had a horse riding accident as well, fell off his horse, damaged his leg. He had an open wound on his leg, and it would never heal. Okay. And he went around with this massive pain, like this open cut in his leg, and it was getting ulcerated. So the cut was eating down into the bone. And the doctors were treating it as best they could, but nobody could handle it. So he was in a foul mood for an awful lot of his life. He was in an awful bad mood for an awful lot of his life. And he had loads of people killed, you know. So what happened was that, and this changed world history. This changed world history. This is why South America speaks Spanish, but North America speaks English. That's why, otherwise, if this hadn't happened, North America and South America would all speak Spanish. Now, North America is speaking more and more Spanish every year. So they think that by 2040, white English-speaking Americans will be a minority to South American, Central American speakers, and that Spanish will eventually become its first language. I'm not saying that's true, but that's a prediction. Emer's sitting there going, okay, so he's just rubbing his hands going, just wait and see. How old will I be then? No, I'll still be good. I'll still be good at that age. Yes, okay. Going to get me a blonde American wife. Yeah, okay. So what happened to all these women? Well, let me tell you what happened. Henry has to marry his brother's widow. His father says, his father at the time is still king, Henry VII, and the son, Edward, the older brother, gets killed. I forget, was it in a battle or an accident? And the father says, Henry, you got to marry your brother's widow, okay? And you have to become king, okay? And Henry says, okay, Dad, will do. Okay, so he marries Catherine of Aragon, and she's a Spanish princess. And this created a fantastic relationship between England and Spain. So Henry VII knew this was like marrying Biden's daughter or Trump's daughter, or, you know, if he's the king. Now remember, they're not a kings for 4 years, they're kings for life. So like once Trump becomes president or Obama becomes president or Biden becomes president, you're president for life when you're king. And she's the aunt of the King of Spain. And like all of these royal families, they're like gypsies. Like, you know, they're always marrying their daughters off to each other to create this bond of blood. And that was to stop wars. Okay, so girls were very important in the family because you'd marry them off. Now, they had no choice in this. So girls were hoping they didn't get a big fat prince. They got some, you know, nice, good-looking prince. So her husband dies and she marries the brother. And what does Henry want more than anything, do you think? Henry had this absolute obsession with getting something from his wife. What do you think it was?
A child.
What
A
kind of
son.
child?
A
A
son.
baby boy.
A son, a baby boy. He wanted a baby boy more than anything.
Anything.
Yes. So they start to do the horizontal mambo, okay? And they're getting busy, and she gets pregnant, and she has a baby. She has a baby girl. Oh, damn it, says Henry. And then she has a few miscarriages. And Henry's getting, screw this, says Henry. This is not going well for me. And this girl works for her, kind of like an au pair, okay? Kind of like Alejandra's job, kind of, sort of, okay? They're called ladies in waiting. And Henry's saying, oh, she looks nice. She's a lot younger than my wife. She's sexy. Oh, nice. So Henry starts giving her little gifts and saying, you know, my wife doesn't understand me and you're amazing. And she's like, oh, Your Majesty, stop it. And blah, blah, blah. Soon they're doing the horizontal mambo, but he's king. He can't just go out in public. He can do it in private, but, you know. So he says, listen, I want to divorce this one here. And everyone goes, are you crazy? And he said, we're a Catholic country. And Henry goes, that's flexible. And the Pope in London, in Rome, is contacted by her nephew, the King of Spain, the most powerful man in the world. And he's going, what the hell kind of mad shit's going on over in England? My aunt's just after phoning me. Of course, they didn't phone him. They didn't have phones. But she Facebooked me and she said, look, that somebody he wants a divorce and he's already given her a daughter, a beautiful daughter. And the Pope says, well, you know, I don't really want to get involved. And then the King of Spain says, listen, Popey, who do you think made you Pope in the first place? Me. So you better get over there. So the kings and the Pope had this wonderful relationship. How did they keep all of us under control? The Pope would say, you see the king? He was sent to you from God. Okay, so do what he says. And all of us would go hunga bunga to this king guy. It's just like some drug dealer, basically. And we're all believing all this shit. Like, you know, so the Catholic Church's role in our life, the Vatican, Catholics, you think we all love the Vatican? We have a very complex relationship with the Vatican. We know our history. So there are good times and bad times in Vatican history, okay? The church says to Henry, Henry, listen, you can't be going on with this crack of divorcing your wife. It's against Catholic law. And Henry's going, yeah, you're just saying that because she's the aunt of the King of Spain. And the Pope goes, no, it's not that. No. It's because it's against Catholic law. And Henry says, you know what? Screw Catholic law. I'm starting my own church. And everyone goes, what are you out of your mind? And at the time, you could be excommunicated out of the Catholic Church. And that was like going to hell while you were still alive. I mean, nobody would touch you if you got excommunicated and you couldn't be king. So Henry's going, yeah, I don't care. Excommunicate me. I don't give a fuck. And the Pope's going, what? And then half the people in Britain are going, what? And half the people in Britain are going, you know what? The Catholic Church have too much power anyway. You know, because the Catholic Church are always bossing everybody around. It's not like Jesus, who's nice and humble. These guys are riding around on horses, taking your land and all that kind of stuff. And they're not very good people themselves. So he divorces her. He sends her to live in a house somewhere on her own. And the King of Spain is absolutely raging that not only is his dear aunt being treated badly, but this looks bad for him because all the other kings of Europe are going, some power you have, King of Spain. And he's going, mother fudger. And he's really angry. Henry gets the sexy Anne Boleyn, who's a Protestant. And this is the beginning of England's change over to Protestantism. And this battle between Protestantism and Catholicism. This, of course, will be exported to Ireland later. And all the problems in Northern Ireland and Belfast all come from Henry VIII's sex life. Can you believe that? All of these problems with Catholics and Protestants are from one guy's. Okay, you could say it's not his sex life. He wants a son. Oh, now, come on. He didn't pick some ugly girl who cleans the kitchen. He picked someone that was hot. So Anne Boleyn was hot, okay? And he marries Anne Boleyn. He makes her Queen Anne. Queen Catherine, out. Queen Anne, in. He beds Anne. They do the horizontal mambo. They get busy. She gets pregnant. She has a baby.
Girl.
She has a baby girl. Oh, not good for Anne. Not good for Anne at all. Ooh. And Anne has created enemies among Henry's court. Anne and her father and her brother, they're getting too cocky now. They're walking around going, we the man, who the man, we the man. And a lot of people going, oh, you, they don't like them. So they start saying to Henry, you know, Your Majesty, she's a bit, you know, I don't want to say anything. And Henry's going, what? What is she? No, tell me. No, I don't want to say anything, you know, because Henry now hasn't got a son and he's getting tired of the sex with Anne. So, you know, time for exit for Anne. And he doesn't want a second divorce, because if he gets a second divorce, well, people say, it's not them, it's you, obviously. You know, they're not going through husbands, you're going through wives. So when his friends and courtiers say, you know, she's very friendly with the musicians in the court, hanging around, she's bringing them up to her room, did you know that? And he said, really? Yeah, what else does she do? And Henry's sort of giving them the signal, like, tell me a lot of bad stuff. So they said, well, we think she's been having sex with her father and her brother. No, says King. Yes, King Henry, that's what they've been doing. Well, says King Henry, that's not good now, is it? That's against God's law. And they say, yeah. So guess what happens?
Beheaded.
Ching, this pretty little thing is no longer with the king, and she gets beheaded. And now the Protestants, first of all, the Catholics were raging with Henry. Now the Protestants are raging with Henry. So not only is the King of Spain angry with Henry, not only is the Pope angry with Henry, now his country is split in two, and the Protestants and the Catholics are going at each other's throats all the time. So Henry leaves it a while, and this girl was her au pair. Lovely. So Henry has all these girls around the castle, and she's helping her, then she becomes queen, and she's helping her. They're all in the same group. And Henry's out there going, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Ooh, she's nice. I'll have her. Okay. And this one is called Jane Seymour, I think. Either she's Jane Seymour or she's Jane Seymour. And he falls in love with her. And the history books tell us that Henry loved her dearly, that he loved her on a personal level, not just a political arrangement, and or whether she gave him a boy or a boy or a girl. Now, they get busy, they do the horizontal mambo, and guess what happens? She has a baby.
Girl.
No, she has a baby boy. But guess what happens? Tragedy strikes. She dies. Okay? And the boy is very sick and weak. Okay? So Henry finally gets the son he wants, but he's sickly. And the doctors are saying, he might live, but... So Henry's like going, mother fudger, can I not get a break? I married this one, she gives me a girl and has a lot of miscarriages. I married this one, she has a girl and has a lot of miscarriages. I married this one, she has a boy and I love her and she dies. And the boy's weak. They don't know if he's going to live or die. So Henry's going, screw this. I am done with women. I am walking away. And he stays a bachelor for a number of years. And Henry's government's going, listen, Jesus Christ, Henry's crap with all of these women and the King of Spain and the Pope and the Protestants and the Catholics in Britain are now killing each other. And they say, listen, Your Majesty, we got to talk. And he goes, talk about what? And you need to get married again. He goes, oh, screw that. I'm not getting married again. Forget about it. I'm not getting married again. And they said, listen. You currently have the King of Spain gunning for you. You've got the Pope gunning for you. That's the papal armies and the Spanish armies, and any Catholic country like France, they're going to side with them. So now we've got France, Spain, and the papacy after us. We've got all of the Protestants in England annoyed with you because you cut off her head. You've got all the Catholics in England annoyed with her. You're in a very dangerous position. And he says, okay, so what do you want me to do? He said, we were thinking that maybe you should marry a German Protestant. And Henry's going, Christ, do I have to? And they were going, because look, I'm done with girls and women. I'm in my 30s or 40s now. I'm not interested. And said, listen, do it for the country. And he says, okay, well, is she good looking? And he said, because I'm not marrying some horse-faced big one. And he said, yeah. So they brought him a portrait, like how girls have a Facebook page and they're like, they're wearing nice makeup. And then you meet them in reality and it's not the same. They show her the Facebook photo. She looks great on Facebook. She arrives in reality to England and Henry says, where is she? And she goes, hi, my lord, it's me. And he goes, what the oh, you are kidding me. This isn't the same photo in the Facebook page. It's not her. And everyone's going, Your Majesty, please don't insult her. This will get back to her father. And he goes, oh, come on. Henry won't even sleep with her. Okay? She's young, but she's not Henry's taste. Henry's going, I'm not marrying that. And they said, you have to marry her. So Henry's like, screw this. And he marries her, but he doesn't bed her. He doesn't bring her to bed. And he doesn't get a baby with her. And Henry's like, oh, Christ, I can't do it. I can't do it. So they're worried now that Henry's going to chop her head off, And he's going like, Jesus Christ, he's killed this one. He's divorced that one. What's he going to do now? So he goes to her and he goes, listen, and I think her name is Anne of Cleves. He goes, listen, it's not you, it's me, you're a lovely girl and everything. But, and she goes, you don't want me? And he goes, how about a box of diamonds and I give you your own castle where you can live like my sister. You're still kind of like the queen, but you're more like my sister, And she's like, did you say diamonds? Yeah. Did you say castle? Yeah. Okay. And she takes the diamonds and castle. She's just worried. She's going to get her head cut off. She's ringing her dad, get me out of here. She's texting her father, you can't leave me here. But then she goes, okay, Dad, come to an arrangement. So she gets a load of diamonds. She gets her own castle. She goes off, lives a great old life, can have any man she wants in private, has to live kind of this quiet life. Henry's going, I was close. Geez, I'm not doing this again. And the courtiers are like his lawyers and all this stuff. What are we going to do with this guy? So he's worse than Trump. He's an accident on wheels, this guy. And a couple of years go by and Henry is in his late 40s, up my age now. And he sees this 18-year-old girl and he thinks, hello, baby, who is that? And they say, I forget her name. I'm sorry, I should know this, but I don't. Not great at history. And he says, I'll have some of that. Absolutely. And they're going, well, she's only 18. Yeah? What's your point? Nothing. So, okay. So this is like me marrying Naomi or Faith now. Naomi and Faith are going, great. And I'm like, woohoo! Okay, so we're all in this kind of situation. And he marries her. And he's very happy. But he's older now. Okay. And she wants to go dancing, going to nightclubs, going out on the tower with her friends. And Henry's like, oh, geez, I need to get to bed by 8 or I just can't get up the next day. And my leg is killing me. And she's like, oh, okay. Okay. And she really does start running around with the musicians. And she's not careful. She's a young girl. She doesn't know what she's getting involved in, and divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded. She gets her head cut off. Yeah, she's just too careless. And Henry's leg is killing him now as well, so he's in very, very, very bad form. He's in foul humor. Very little is needed to get her head cut off. And then finally, he marries this woman. I think this is Jane Seymour. So Catherine, Anne. That's another Anne. There was two Annes. And I forget the name. We can Google it anyway. So he marries her. Henry dies, I think, at the age of 54, 53. So he died young, really. Not in those days, but in modern terms, very young to die at that stage. And he marries her. She has a good relationship with him. At this stage, of course, the first daughter and the second daughter and the son. He has 3 kids from his first 3 wives. This is Mary. This one has Elizabeth. This one has Edward. Okay. Edward. Okay. This one, well, he didn't even bed her. This one, no, she got killed before she even got a chance to, give him a baby. And she wasn't giving him a baby as well, so yeah. Couldn't even be sure if it was his, And this one, she's an older woman, but I think he's given up at this stage on having kids. And she looks after him. There's a lot of problems between the children because of all the Catholics are pushing her daughter. She dies of cancer eventually. All the Protestants are pushing her daughter, and then a lot of people are pushing the son. And everyone's going, you get out of here with the son. Forget about it. He's too weak. And I think the son dies by the time he's 11. Finally, Henry dies. And the big question is, what?
Who is the processor?
Exactly. Who's the successor? The successor. Predecessor is the one before Henry. That would have been Henry VII. But who's going to be the successor? There are 3 kids. Spanish Catholic background, Mary. English Protestant background, Elizabeth. English Protestant background, Edward.
Good.
Who do you think they pick?
The first one.
No.
Elizabeth.
No. They go sexist. They go with the boy first. Bad idea. He's not up to it. He's only a kid. And that's great for the people who are left behind because they think we can control him.
Mm-hmm.
We can control him. We can make him do what we want. And by the time he's 18, he'll be our puppet. We can form him. But he dies at 11. Ugh. So it's back to 2 girls. And now, remember I told you the Catholic and the Protestant war going on in British society? Now it ramps up. Big league. The Catholics take over and they put Mary in charge. Who's older, Mary or Elizabeth?
Mary.
Mary, obviously, because she was first. How much older? She's about 6 or 7 years older. Like, so when she's 21, Elizabeth's only a young teenager. She's like 13 or 14. Mary says, yeah, I'll take my stepsister in. Yeah, why not? Yeah, I'll take my stepsister in. But Mary realizes that Elizabeth is TNT. She's nuclear, And Elizabeth's still a kid. Like, she's still a teenage girl. And all the Protestants are getting stronger and stronger, and they put Elizabeth on the throne, and Mary, she gets thrown in prison first. And while Elizabeth is queen, Mary tries a couple of times to screw Elizabeth over, to get back into the thing, and she won't stay down. It was like a boxing match. Boom! Stay down, Mary. Stay down. And she's going, I can do this all day. Boom! Mary, I'm telling you. And eventually Elizabeth goes, look, this is going to keep going all the time. But Mary's head goes off and Elizabeth becomes queen. Now, Mary, who was Mary's mom? Catherine. Who was Catherine connected to?
Spanish.
King. So she was the Spanish king's aunt. So Mary, who they just killed, is the Spanish king's
Auntie.
No, she was the auntie. What's her daughter?
Cousin.
She's a cousin. So Elizabeth I has just killed the cousin of the most powerful man in the world. And he's not happy. He is not happy. Okay? And he decides he's going to invade England. He's going to invade England with what? He's going to invade England with the biggest group of ships they have on the planet. Okay? Like the American Navy today or the Chinese Navy. They're huge. Okay? Will they go to war in your lifetime? We can only hope they don't. But he sets sail for England with these massive ships. These ships have cannons on them that can blow a castle on the coast. They can blow it out of its foundations, okay? And people are worried and scared. Elizabeth's only a young queen. She's only a young queen. And what happens? Well, Elizabeth movie invasion scene. Okay. Now, the great thing about this, there's loads of movies that you should watch in your time here in Europe. So there's Kate Blanchett. Kate Blanchett plays the young Elizabeth here. Okay. And she is the young Elizabeth. She then plays in a second movie where she's the older Elizabeth. But here she is as a young woman. I think she was something like 21 when she became queen. What state in America is Langley, the CIA headquarters in? And I give you a hint. It begins with V.
Las Vegas.
Virginia.
Virginia. Where does Virginia get its name? If you cut off the last two letters, what word do you have?
Virgin.
Virgin. Elizabeth never married. Okay? This was unusual. And the government were always trying to get her to marry. And she was very strong-minded. She was not having any of this. She wasn't having any of it. She says no. And that was unusual for a woman to be so powerful. That she refused to get married. So really a feminist in her own way. She was an individual. Nobody was going to tell her what to do. So because she never got married, she had to tell everybody she was a virgin. Because if she said publicly, yeah, I'm not married, but yeah, of course I have sex. Like, I mean, I'm the queen. Jesus, she'd be in huge trouble. She couldn't say that. So they called her the Virgin Queen. And Virginia in America is named after Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. Okay. And that's what they call it. Now, getting back to Elizabeth, she so the biggest, like, imagine in Ireland now, if we had an argument with Joe Biden and he said he was going to invade us. Bloody hell, can you imagine? There's American choppers and boats and ships, and they're all coming. And it's deep trouble. Big trouble. Okay. So they have these watchtowers, and we have these in Ireland as well. During the Napoleonic times, we built these things called Martello Towers, or the British did rather, so that invaders couldn't come to Ireland and get them from the west. So what do they see from the towers? Oh, here come the Spanish. So they light these things. Word get back to Westminster. This is Westminster that you can visit today. And here are all the watchtower signals. They're sending this signal along. Everyone can see the lights come. If it's during the day, they'll see the smoke. If it's at night, they'll see the lights. Elizabeth gets the news. The Spanish are coming. And she doesn't have the same armada that they have. So she's in deep shit here. She doesn't know what to do, okay? And how is she going to get out of this, she wonders.
Lords,
She asked them for advice.
This armada that sails against us carries in its bowels the Inquisition. God,
Now, do you know what the Inquisition is?
then there will be no more liberty in England.
Do you know what the Inquisition is? Well, at this time, the Catholic Church were pretty crazy, okay? And they would, and the Spanish part of it, sorry, Spanish speakers, but, you know, it's true. Spanish in particular had a brand of Catholic religion where they'd go around testing you. If you didn't pass the test, you went through some wicked torture, and it was called the Spanish Inquisition. And it was so bad that the Spanish Inquisition is an idiom today when you ask people a lot of questions. So if your mother says, "Where were you last night?" "I was just with friends." "Where?" "Oh, come on, Mom, don't give me the Spanish Inquisition." Okay? We use that as an idiom in English today. So she's saying, guys, listen, this ship is carrying all of those torturers with their knives and their things, and they'll cut you open. They could imagine punishments that you couldn't even believe. And they'd keep you alive for a long time. They'd peel the skin off your back, you know, stuff that drug cartels might do today. The Catholic Church were doing that then. So again, you know, like our Catholic religion and the Catholic Church, they're two separate things, you know.
Of conscience or of thought. We cannot be defeated.
So it's do or die for the British now. And the problem is the British Armada, the British Navy, it's nowhere near ready for the Spanish Armada. Hasn't got a chance.
Bells are to ring from every town. Labourers are to leave the fields and take up arms. The harvest must wait.
So you can't really hear that, but she's saying that every labourer, every farmer has to leave the fields, leave the harvest. The harvest must wait, okay? And they have to, we may starve later because we haven't got the harvest in, but everybody drop everything, pick up your pitches, and you're going to fight here.
All prisoners are to be released.
All prisoners are to be released. So she's clever, like she's saying, tell the prisoners, we'll let you out of prison, and if you fight, freedom.
England is their country too.
England is their country too. So who's her dad?
Henry.
Henry the Fourth.
Henry VIII. Henry VIII. And who's her mom? The Spanish queen or the English queen?
English one.
The English one, yeah. What happened to her mom?
Beheaded.
Beheaded
By whom?
by the Henry.
By her dad. The people are you talking about here? Daddy murdered Mammy. I love Daddy. Jesus.
And release Raleigh.
And Raleigh is a town, I think, in either, I think it's a town in Virginia as well, Raleigh. And it's Walter Raleigh, okay? Walter Raleigh was the guy she loved, but he wouldn't settle down. And she loved Walter Raleigh. And she had him imprisoned because she was angry with him. And she said, release Raleigh. Because Raleigh, and here you can see, she's sorry she put him in prison. But Raleigh was a free spirit. He was this sailor, and she gave him land in Ireland. She gave him something like 100,000 acres in the south of Ireland. Best farming land around Cork. He stayed for a while and said, here, give it back. I'm not interested. I'm heading to the sea. So he was kind of like Jack Sparrow almost. You know, he's this kind of seafaring guy. She has the hots for him. People believe they were lovers for a long time. And, but he didn't care, you know, he was kind of action hero, you know.
He's forgiven.
I forgive him. She forgives him now when the Spanish are at the door, like, you know.
To be forgiven.
So here you see the White Cliffs of Dover. Okay. This is an English ship. And there's a guy called Drake. Drake and Raleigh are two of the biggest sea heroes at the time. These are like Navy SEALs. Like these are the top guys.
Majesty, the enemy has been engaged.
What news?
A brave action, Majesty.
Oh, students who were with me yesterday. Little bit of tense work. Let's listen up.
Majesty, the enemy has been engaged.
Can you catch that? Can you hear it?
The army has been engaged.
What tense is that?
Has been is
Which tense is that? The enemy has been engaged.
present perfect.
It's the present perfect. Well done. And it's the passive voice as well. Has been engaged. Now, why is he using the present perfect? What rule did I give you yesterday that lets us know that the present perfect is the correct one to use?
Emphasis. He's doing emphasis on something.
Nope, he's not doing any emphasis.
Just a moment ago.
News.
He has news for her. Okay, he has news for her. And you'll find that table that we were looking at yesterday is very accurate in the reasons. Like if you were watching a movie and you said, oh, that guy just used the present perfect. I wonder why. Simple. That's why. Because it's news. So he said, Your Majesty, the enemy has been engaged.
Majesty, the enemy has been engaged.
What news?
A brave action, Majesty. 2 ships lost.
With what gain?
2 ships lost. Uh-oh, that's not good. What gain? But what did we get for that?
The enemy continued to advance.
The enemy continued to... What did he say?
Revolt.
With what gain?
The enemy continued to advance.
Give me the full sentence, Faith. I'll play it one more time, then Faith will give me the sentence.
With what gain?
The enemy continued to advance.
The enemy continued to revolt.
To
Revolt.
advance.
Or advance.
But what does he say? How is accent a barrier to capture here?
With what gain?
The enemy continued to advance.
In an Irish accent, you would say advance. In an American accent, you would say advance. Advance. How does he pronounce it?
With what gain?
The enemy continued to advance.
British advance.
Advance.
How does he
Advance.
pronounce it? Advance.
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 Sorry.
And play with accents, mimic them. Because if your mouth produces it, your ear has a better chance of recognizing it. That's why people who mimic other languages are very good at picking up accents, speaking like native speakers. You might spend 1 or 2 years or 3 years in Ireland, so you should be able to get that accent. But you should be able to do a London accent. You should be able to do an American accent. And that could be a real benefit for you if you're going for job interviews after college. So the British Navy, they're no match. They're no match for the Spanish.
Another 4 ships lost. We must
Another 4 ships lost.
continue to engage and harass the enemy. We're outgunned, Drake. Decisively.
So there's Drake. Drake is the older guy. I forgot which one was older. So the sexy guy we saw earlier with the mustache and hanging out of the ship, that was Raleigh. That's the guy she loved. There's Drake. He's slightly older guy. Drake's also a great sailor.
We're outgunned, Drake. Decisively. We're losing too many ships. We must fall back and defend the coast.
If the wind is with us, Walter, we can attack them with fire ships. 6 fire ships into the Spanish formation.
What did he say?
6.
Walter, we can attack them with fire
If
ships.
the wind is
6 fire ships into the Spanish formation.
I catch 6 in the Spanish formation. 6.
Very good. Very good. Let's listen again and you'll capture
With
more.
us, Walter, we can attack them with fire ships. 6 fire ships
Ah,
into the
flagships.
Spanish formation.
Not flagships. That's an intelligent one because there is such a word. Remember, he's speaking in an English accent, so the accent, he won't be bending his oars.
With us, Walter, we can attack them with fire ships.
4 ships.
Fire ships.
fire ship, yeah.
Fire. Yeah, I would say fire. Americans would say fire, and he'll say fire. Fire ships. We can attack them with fire ships. And this was the plan they went with. Set some of their own ships on fire, sail them into them, and then if fire could catch hold, because there were so many in the Armada, they were all bunched in together. So they saw a strategic possibility. And the Queen, Elizabeth, is in this trouble because her dad couldn't keep it in his pants. What a situation.
If the wind is
This will affect South America because now the Spanish won't be able to go as far as they wanted to. Their power will be, well, we'll see what happens.
with us, Walter, we can attack them with fire ships. 6 fire ships into the Spanish formation. That may force them to scatter.
We can't get anywhere near them.
We have to break their formation. It's our only chance.
So there's Raleigh. There's Mr. Sexy Pants that the Queen loves. If he says, marry me in the morning, she'll say, she'll absolutely go for it. But this guy's, he's James Bond. He's not going to stick with any one woman.
The Spanish are barely a day away, Majesty.
We must withdraw to safe ground.
I beg you to appreciate the gravity of the situation. There is very little time.
Now remember, she's only about your age, girls. You're what, like 18, 19? She's only in her 20s at this stage. She's not 30. I forget what age she is, but I think at the time, Elizabeth's like this young woman. She would still be in college at this stage, okay? As far as I remember. She gets out with all the men. She puts on the armor, okay? She's come from a difficult background. Half the country want her dead. Any Catholic wants her dead, okay? The Spanish want her dead. Her father murdered her mother. Jesus. And he murdered her uncle. No, was it? He murdered her uncle and the father got away. So her granddad survived on her mother's side. So she puts on the armor. She's going full tilt.
People, we see the sails of the enemy approaching. We hear the Spanish guns over the water. Soon now, we will meet them face to face. I am resolved in the midst and heat of the battle to live or die amongst you all.
So this helps the soldiers, knowing that this young girl who's a queen, she's not escaping out the back in a Rolls Royce. She's going to go in with the guys.
While we stand together, no invasion
What did she say there in that last piece? Let's replay that.
When we stand together,
We
no
stand
win.
together, no invader shall pass. While we stand together, no invader shall pass.
What did you catch? You caught something.
No invader shall.
Come together.
No invader shall. Okay, let's get that.
While we stand together, no invader shall pass. While we stand together, no invader shall pass.
What do you think?
No one invade us.
No invader shall.
Set us apart.
Off. She said
No.
off.
And you've got to reverse engineer her accent now. If you heard me saying this word, you go, oh, okay. You've got to reverse engineer what she said last back into the accent you're used to.
While we stand together,
What was that part?
While we stand together.
While we stand together.
no invader shall pass.
No win shall.
Listen again.
While we stand together, no invader shall pass.
No invaders shall post.
You're very close. You're very close. It's the last word. It's just the last word you've got wrong. Everything else is correct. No invader shall.
Pass.
But the aha. So the barrier to comprehension here, the barrier to listening, the barrier to capture, is her accent. Remember, I told you that at the start of the lesson. At the start of the lesson this morning, and we were talking to barriers to capture. Lack of focus if you're not paying attention, distraction if there's noise around you, contraction, compression, and cutting, speaking speed, and accent, which is a form of regional compression. So how do I say that last word? Iomi, I think it was you that got it, or was it Faith?
It's me.
Okay. So how does she pronounce that word? The last word.
Dave Galera.
Door.
Oh,
As I speak
apologies.
to you this evening, I'm very conscious that I'm speaking to a country that has endured almost 12
No invader shall pass. Let them come with the armies of hell. They will not pass. While we stand together, no invader shall pass.
How does she pronounce that word?
Pass.
Pass. And how do people pronounce it in Ireland?
Pass.
Pass. And how do people pronounce it in America?
Pass.
Pass. It'll be a more nasal. Now, of course, American states will vary, but we'll say in the standardized American pronunciation, they'd say, no invader shall pass. That's a mimic of the American accent. Ireland, no invader shall pass. And she says, no invader shall pass. Because A, what does farmer change to?
Farmer.
Farmer. What does car change to?
Car.
What does pass change to?
Pass.
Pass. Okay. So I talked about these issues earlier. These are barriers to capture. Okay. So when you're doing a listening test, accent, if you have no exposure to it, or if you're not giving it its attention, then that may be a barrier to capture. And we have to avoid that at all possibilities, at all possible.
While we stand together, no invader shall pass. Let them come with the armies of hell. They will not pass. And when this day of battle is ended, we meet again in heaven, or on the field of victory.
So what happens? Well, our own very own her very own James Bond jumps in, and Raleigh saves the day. Elizabeth, the movie. And it's all very dramatic. It's all very dramatic. But one thing really helped Raleigh, okay? One thing really helped Raleigh. I don't know if they'll show it here. The weather. Raleigh got lucky as well, okay? Very brave. Raleigh goes out on his own horse, or he goes out with his own horse. Oh yeah, here's the Spanish king, okay? And he's looking for revenge. So this is happening at the same moment, okay? And they've cut down all these trees. Why? Building the ships. Okay.
Okay.
And this is all going forward. Right. There's, what's her name? There's Raleigh. Kind of bad boy, you know. Action man.
Puddle.
And that's a famous scene in British culture. If you ever go to London, Walter Raleigh took off his coat and threw it on a puddle so the Queen wouldn't have to walk in the puddle. And this is a famous, I don't know, it's just a famous story in British culture. Irish people were like, whatever. But the British are very proud of that. Just a small story. So that's how he gets to know her. And he wants, like, you know, to get in the Queen's thing. Of course, it's her younger assistant that he's really interested in. And she's like, ooh. She's kind of all excited by this young guy. Now, when the battle comes, I don't know if it shows the scene here.
I also can't bear
Anyway, I'll just tell you the story. Raleigh takes his ship, goes on himself, not one of his men, with his horse, a white horse, and he goes out into the middle of the Spanish Armada, lights the ship full of explosive, and kaboom, blows the Spanish Armada to hell, okay? The Spanish Armada are then like in total confusion, so the rest of the British Army come in and go, pow, 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 and they are in complete confusion, and a lot of the Armada either sinks or gets the hell out of there. But more tragedy hits the Spanish Armada. What do you think happens? What happens? The weather blows them off course, and they can't get home because they need the wind to blow them in the right direction to get home. Where does it blow them to? You won't believe this.
To England.
No.
To America.
No.
Spain.
No.
Ireland.
Yes, but guess where in Ireland? Guess where in Ireland?
In Sligo.
Yes, they blew them to Sligo. Yes. And to this day, the Spanish Armada has a huge contact with Sligo, and some ships are still stuck in the beach in Sligo. And if you ever do, you know, Armada, Sligo, and they're trying to get funding to build a huge Armada museum like the Titanic Museum in Sligo. There's people who've been trying to get it for years. So the Spanish Armada and Sligo have a huge influence. And guess what happens? Guess what happens? Yeah.
Do you have a Titanic museum here?
Yeah, it's in Belfast.
Oh, I would like to visit the place.
Oh, well, wait to hear this story. Yeah, it's interesting to go to. They're very badly organized up there for some reason. We tried to, you know, organize trips. Oh my God, talk about complicated. But anyway, This guy, de Cuellar, Captain Francisco de Cuellar, he's on one of the ships that land up in Sligo, you know, and they have to come in off the boat. Now, what do you think happens when they come in off the boat? Now, you can visit this place. Where is it? It's about 10 minutes, 15 minutes drive from Sligo on the north side. You wouldn't walk there now. It should take you hours to walk. And even cycling now, you'd want to be a very committed cyclist. It would take you about 2 hours to cycle there. But about 15 minutes will get you there by car. It's a place called Streedja Beach. Okay. Streedja. It's on the north side of Sligo. Streedja. How do they spell it? Streedja Beach. A lovely beach to go for a walk on. Huge empty beach. Very often there's nobody there. That's Streedja Beach. Okay. And they found, and there's a film being made about it, but I don't know if it's produced yet. The film. So this shows de Cuellar coming in after the battle with Walter Raleigh that you just saw in Sligo. And that's crazy. If you look at a map and say, how the hell did they get blown around? They got blown around in Sligo and some of the ships began to sink. And look here, that's a Spanish Armada ship. And you can go out there and stand in that if you want, because they've never removed it. They've kept it there because it's preserved by the seawater. So in the 1600s, Spanish guys were standing on that, fighting the British in that movie I just showed you. And you can walk out there, you can see it's a huge beach. And the Spanish Armada, that's what they would have looked like when they came in off the thing. There's Benbulben. That's Benbulben. If you live in Benbulben Suites, that's where it's named after, that mountain. Okay. And they've named, they have this, they've tried to make a movie. I don't know if the movie is made yet or not, but these are parts of the boat, a 428-year-old wreck, okay? And they discovered it. Now, sometimes it won't be there because the sea is in, okay? But you'll find it. It's easy to spot it on the beach if you go out there for a walk. It's interesting from a historical perspective. And what this is connected to, because when they won that battle, the British became stronger. And that's why America speaks English today. Unbelievable. And prior to that, the Spanish were going all the way up, 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 up. And then the British, then they lost their armada, and it paused their development and stunted them. And the British got a thing. So that's why they speak English. And Virginia is called Virginia. And an awful lot of the states, for example, Raleigh is a town. Is it in Virginia? I think it's in Carolina, South Carolina. It's a big city, like bigger than Dublin. And it's named after Walter Raleigh, the sexy action hero you saw there in the video. But one of the guys in that battle was called Francisco de Cuellar. And Francisco de Cuellar were one of the guys that landed on the beach. Okay, their ship ran aground, and here they were. They had to jump off and walk onto the beach. What do you think happened to them when they walked onto the beach? Now, I have to tell you, we don't really tell this to our Spanish tourists. What do you think happened?
They got killed.
Yes, the local people robbed them. So embarrassing. But that's Sligo people for you. That's Sligo people down to the ground. Okay? I'm from Mayo, so I can say that. So, yes, de Cuellar gets his men ashore. He survives. Oh, by the way, if you go out there, you'll see some of these big pictures drawn on the sides of houses out there. Okay, if you go down that road, it shows you where to turn to go down, and you'll see this trail, the de Cuellar Trail, Spanish Armada, 1588. Okay, and the de Cuellar Trail. Now, why is the de Cuellar Trail Famous? Well, it should be a movie. It should have been a movie 40 years ago. De Quer, what do you think he does with his men? What do you think De Quer does with his men? Guess. He walks home. He says, okay, guys, it's a long walk home. And they say, what? And he says, we're going to walk home. He says, what are you talking about? We're in another country. Yeah, well, we're going to walk to the port of this country. We're going to get on a ship and we're going to get to Spain. So they walk across Ireland and it's a big adventure. And to this day, if you can walk on the trail that he walked through Sligo, and tourists often go on it, tourists who like to go walking. So if you go to the De Quer Trail, the De Quer Trail, I forget which way he went. Did he go this way? So the tourist board put this up. So Spanish people who are interested in the history went on this De Quer. And if you go around Sligo, for example, you'll see the De Quer Trail. And it's from these guys who landed here in 1588. Okay. And the De Quer movie, okay. So for example, Remembering the Armada, that was over here in 2018. And Spanish Armada, Ireland, etc. So you can see why there's this big connection. And let's see if the De Quer movie is there. Let's see if there's a clip of it. And his incredible escape to freedom. Armada 1588. Okay. So let's have a quick look at this and see. Oh, maybe we'll have a look at the 1 minute video, actually, not the I think the full movie might be online. But it's absolutely fascinating how you are in Sligo now learning English. This is why English, they speak English in America. This is typical account, temporary and available, great. So Henry, not being able to keep it in his pants, screwing around, okay, and completely obsessed with having a son, led him to going to war with Spain, and Spain losing its after he died, of course. So there's lots of these online lectures. I don't know if the part of the movie will be in it. If it's not, we'll drop it. But this is how it's connected. Yes, Emer.
So John, after that, England start to.
Sorry, Emer. Go ahead again. Sorry.
This Spanish Armada Ireland webcast, we discussed the production of a new Spanish Armada document.
My apologies. I couldn't get that to stop.
Not okay. No, my query is if after that was the England start to invade in, for example, Australia, India.
Australia was much later. That was in the time of Captain Cook. And India, yes, but this was the beginning of their thing. In fact, New York is named after the city of York. Okay, well, it's actually the Duke of York, but they called it New York. What was New York before it was called New York? Because they didn't found it. It was the Dutch who founded that city. What do you think its original name was?
Netherlands.
No. New York What's the capital of Netherlands?
Amsterdam.
So it was called New Amsterdam. Okay. The original name for New York was New Amsterdam. So if I put up New Amsterdam there. And why did the Dutch build it? You see, why do you think people wanted to cross the Atlantic Ocean? Why do you think people wanted to cross the Atlantic Ocean? What country were they trying to get to? Who can tell me? Anybody?
Turkey.
No. You know, in Western movies, you know, Westerns, you often see cowboys fighting who?
Indians.
But they're not from India. You see, when people were crossing the Atlantic Ocean, they thought they were going to India because they had realized that the world is round. I was looking for an orange or an apple here somewhere, but it's not there. So the world is round. So they finally figured that out. Before that, they thought the world was flat. And they thought that if you sailed far enough, you'd drop over the edge of the earth. And then they discovered the earth was round. And then they said, well, if the world is round, we'll finally get to India, won't we? Now, why do you think they wanted to get to India?
Something about the spices.
Yes. Spices. Not gold, not silver, spice. That's what they were looking for. Now, why do you think they were so interested in finding spices? Why was that of relevance? Like, why would you, like, I know spice is lovely, isn't it? But come on now, you don't go all the way around the world to get it.
It was expensive, right?
It was expensive, but for a very practical reason. We use spice today as a condiment. You know, we use it as an addition to food. It's a luxury. But it was more than a luxury then. Why do you think it was important then?
To preserve food.
Exactly. To preserve food. So they had no fridges. So if you killed a cow or a pig or a sheep, that meat was going to go off. So very often you had to trade with your neighbors. You say, well, I'll kill a sheep this week and I'll give you a leg. And you'll kill a sheep next month and you give me a leg. And it was kind of complicated. But they found that if they rubbed spice, when sailors went to these other countries, they discovered that they were very good at preserving meat. And they found that by rubbing spice into the meat, meat would last much longer. So spice became this kind of thing for food security. Food security isn't something we think about today, but you never know how life can change. It might become a major issue. Look at COVID. We saw things in COVID that we couldn't have imagined a year previously. Well, food security was a big part of it. And being able to preserve food is a major thing. How long will eggs last, do you think?
A week.
An African egg. Oh.
Eggs. How long do you think eggs last? Not long. Okay. But if you take slaked lime, lime is a kind of white powder you use in building. All right. It comes from limestone. If you burn that, it turns into a white powder. It looks like cocaine or flour. And if you mix slaked lime in water and put your eggs into that, they'll keep for up to 2 years. Okay. Now, why is that a necessary thing to know? Well, if you have chickens, what does anybody know about chickens and how they lay eggs?
I know it's only take 21 days to hatch.
Say again.
I know the egg of a chicken only take 21 days to hatch.
Well, that's if you want the bird out of the chicken. So then you'll have a cock. That's where the word for penis comes from, the male chicken. A male chicken is called a cock. So, you know, when the cock crows, well, that's where that word comes from. If you have a cock running around with them, then there could be little birds inside in the eggs. So in the old days, people would hold them up to a candle to see if there was a bird inside. The light would shine through the egg and they could see the chicken inside. So they say, well, put that over here and we'll keep that warm and the chicken will live. This one, no egg. Well, we can have that for breakfast. So you had to divide up your eggs. That's why people don't like having a cock running around with their hens nowadays, because he's really bossy. He's really loud. You're sleeping in bed at 5 o'clock. He sees the sun coming up and he's like, cock-a-doodle-doo. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so we don't always have a cock. These eggs that you want for breakfast, the problem is in summer, chickens lay a lot of eggs, 1 or possibly 2 per day. Okay, if you have 10 chickens, you're getting 20 eggs a day. Okay, are you going to eat 20 eggs a day? No. But could you make cake? Yes. But are you going to be making cake every day? No. So you end up giving your eggs to your neighbors. Maybe they'll give you some pork or chicken or ham or something like that. So there's a lot of this barter. So you had to keep these relationships going. Well, they discovered that if you put eggs in slaked lime, don't wash them. Now, these are chicken's eggs, not shop-bought eggs. Once they go into the shop, they go through a cleaning process, so you can't do this. But if you have a chicken and he's laying eggs in, here's 2 eggs, and you're going, I can't eat all these eggs. You can start putting them away. And you can keep all these eggs in the slaked lime for up to 2 years. So it was a great form of food security. Okay, but not every country knew this. This wasn't well known in Ireland. Or maybe not every generation knows this. Maybe you think eggs come from the shop, not from out of a hen's ass. And that when they do come out of the hen's ass, there's often a little bit of poop on them. And you charge extra for that. Okay, so they were looking for spice. Why? Food security. That's why we call American Indians, that's why American Indians don't want to be called Indians anymore. They want to be called Native Americans. Okay. Just like, you know, black people, the original word for black was negro. And so they don't want to be called Negroes anymore. Okay. Which was just a word. Now, it's not the N word, which sounds like bigger. That's not that word. So American Indians gets their name because the white guys who landed there thought that they had landed in India. And they said, hello, so this is India. And the American Indians are going, no. And so you're Indians. No, we're not. I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know any place called India, but we're not that. Okay. And that's how these guys got their names. Okay. That's how these guys got their names. And a lot of words in America, like Massachusetts, these are Indian names. Okay. What's the most elegant part of New York? If you went on a holiday, where would you like to go on holiday for? You know, where would you like to visit in New York? Stay there, ideally.
Manhattan.
There you go. Manhattan. Now, Manhattan is an Indian word. I don't mean from Hindu. I don't mean that. Manhattan's an Indian word because before Manhattan was developed, this is actually Wall Street down here. This is the Wall Street area, okay? And then Manhattan is over here a bit in this direction. Manhattan's a large area, so there's lots of smaller areas inside it. Manhattan is the short version of Manhattanachichuk. That's the original name for Manhattan, Manhattanachichuk. What do you think it means in English? It's an Indian word. Do you want to guess what it means? Well, Manhattan gets its name from a meeting place where the first white settlers, English speakers, met Native Americans. And they sat down together. And what do you think they did? What do you often do with your friends when you sit down together to meet each other socially?
Discuss.
Say again?
Discuss.
Omanis won't do this, but Hondurans will do this. Spanish.
Coffee.
More than coffee. Irish do this a lot.
Tea.
Drink. Alcohol.
Not tea.
Ah.
Omanis can drink tea. Omanis can drink coffee. What can Omanis not drink?
Alcohol.
Beer.
Alcohol, beer. And the white settlers brought some alcohol with them. And they gave it to the American Indians who hadn't had this type of alcohol before. And the alcohol was pretty strong. And what do you think happened to the Indians?
They were drunk.
They got drunk. And Manhattanachichuk means the place where we got drunk. That's what Manhattan. Manhattan is the short form of Manhattanachichuk. So when the British went over, just like when they came to Ireland, they saw names like Schligach, and they said, change that to Sligo. It's easier. And they went to Manhattan, and it was called Manhattanachichuk. And they said, screw that. Manhattan, it's easy. I'll do that. So Manhattan means the place. Manhattanachichuk, the place where we got drunk. Okay. And were the English that talked to them? They could have been Dutch. I'm not sure. But New York was originally called New Amsterdam. Why do you think that the Dutch built a city there? Well, that's now a TV series called New Amsterdam. So he's taken up the internet. But if we go, for example, the New Amsterdam, New York, okay. We take that option, you'll see that they had developed a town here on the mouth. Now, if we look at a map of America, okay. If you look at a map of America, the English and, of course, the Dutch were very popular. King Philip of Spain gave his name to what country?
Philippines.
The Philippines, exactly. That's where it gets its name, because King Philip of Spain, and they had a big Dutch influence. So, damn it, no, that's too small. If you see a map of the United States, what size is that one now? Oh, damn it. They used to give you the size of the picture. Okay, that's not too bad. 110. You'll see that New York. Okay. Okay. So a lot of names that you see there are because the English coming over. What's that city there? Can you see it? Oh, what did I do?
Carolina.
Can you see that city down there in North Carolina? Raleigh. He's the guy that jumped on the ship and blew up the Spanish Armada. So they named a city after him because he came over here as well. He was everywhere, that guy. He was always sailing around. Okay. Raleigh, this one, West Virginia. Okay. Virginia, West Virginia, named after Elizabeth because she was a virgin queen. But they came into New York, which is up here. New York is south. So Philadelphia, where's New York? There's New York. And they thought New York had rivers that were going to take it through this country and across to India. because they were after spices. Okay. And they went through these and they couldn't get to India. And finally, they discovered that what they'd actually discovered, what they called the New World, was actually way better than that. Okay. And when the Spanish, they discovered something else kings like. What do you think kings like?
Gold.
Gold, yes. And what's in second place? What's in second place after gold? If you win the gold medal and you come in second
Silver.
place,
Silver.
you're going to win silver. What's the Spanish word for silver?
Plata.
Plato. Okay.
Plata.
Plata. And what is argenta? What's argenta?
Argenta. Not sure.
Well, in Latin, I think argenta is possibly I'm not sure if that's the Latin word for that, but when they got to Argentina, it comes from argento, which is the symbol for silver. Okay. And there were a lot of silver mines in Argentina, and that's where it gets its name from. Okay. So that's how that got its name. Portugal were traveling abroad as well. The King of Portugal had an army, and they took Brazil. So they got a big slice of it. They did very well. The Dutch were going over, and the Dutch got New York. And the Dutch, they weren't planning to build a big city there. Okay. And at the time, Britain and Holland were at war. Britain was always at war with somebody. And the British surrounded New York, and there was a stalemate. Stalemate was when nobody's winning. Okay. And they decided, let's meet and let's have an agreement. And so they did. And what did I tell you this whole race was for?
Conquering.
No. They were after something. They were after spices. And one of the spices that was more valuable than gold at the time was nutmeg. Okay, nutmeg. And these islands, which are northwest of Australia and are called the Banda Islands, these grew the spice called nutmeg. And nutmeg was more valuable than gold. Imagine a tree that can produce gold. And they were after this island. And all of these islands were the only place in the world at that time that could grow nutmeg. They tried to bring trees to other places. They dug up the trees and they brought them and said, let's bring them back to England. But they couldn't grow them in any way or at all. They could not grow them. And they brought them to other places and it would not grow. They didn't have the knowledge, the skill, or the science to, the skill or the science to grow them. So the British had one or two of these islands, and the Dutch had one of these islands. Okay, these small islands that you can see here in the picture. And the British wanted exclusivity of all of the islands. You see there, this is New Guinea, and it's a tiny. Okay, they're called the Banda Islands, and these islands successfully and easily grew nutmeg. And the Dutch and the British had some of these islands. And the Dutch were eating into the British market for nutmeg. Okay? And the British said, I'll tell you what, let's talk about New York. We want this town you call New Amsterdam. We're going to call it New York. They didn't imagine it was going to be a big place in the future. They thought, we want control of this port to get through to India. That's what they thought at the time. And the Dutch said, yeah. And the Dutch got together and said, listen, we're not going to win this battle with the British. And they said, I know, but the British just had a massive fire in London, and they can't get food to back up these guys here in New York. And said, okay, but we're in a stalemate. Yeah, but it's not a terrible situation, right? We don't have to surrender. We can negotiate. So guess what they did? I got this the wrong way around. The British had the island of Run, and these islands belonged to Holland. And Holland wanted to kick Britain out of the nutmeg trade and said, I'll tell you what, if you give us the island of Run, we'll give you New Amsterdam, and you can call it New York or whatever the hell you're talking about. And the British said, done. And they shook hands on it, and the Dutch left. New York, New Amsterdam. The British took it. Then the British left Run, and the Dutch took this. And the Dutch had 100 years of sole exclusive production of the spice nutmeg, and they made millions and millions of pounds. Now you might say that was stupid, but New York didn't develop into anything for another 100 years. So, you know, if you're thinking about your country's future, would you think about the first 100 years or the next 500 years? Plus, they couldn't hold the city. So they thought, look, we're lucky that London had the Great Fire of London just before the war, or the news came while they were fighting the battle that London had been burnt down. And the British soldiers was going, oh shit, now we have no backup from home. The Dutch thought, so you can't beat us. We can't beat you, but you can't beat us. So let's negotiate. So they had to negotiate, and they took the island of Run. Okay. And that's where they got it. Not far from the island of Run is the island of New Ireland. It's a place I'd love to visit sometime. But New Ireland on the map is not far from that area. It's in that area of the world. Okay. A lot of Irish people don't even know there's a country called, or there's an island. It's not a country. There's an island called New Ireland. Okay. Way down in the Pacific. Even the map, you see, is having a problem. It's giving me New Ireland life assurance, but New Ireland island island in Papua New Guinea. Okay. Now, are there Irish people that went down there? No, it was the British. They had one called New Britain. And then they named one of them New Ireland, and it's in Papua New Guinea. Looks good though, you know? Huh? Yeah. That's better than Strand Hill on a windy day, you know? So that's New Ireland. So a tropical place, New Ireland, exists. You could ask some Irish people, do you know where New Ireland is? They haven't a clue. It's just I'm a genius, so I know these things. So that's New Ireland, and it's near Britain. It's a bit of a dump, apparently, though. You know, it's not. I think there's a high crime rate. I think there's a hotel on it, but they don't speak very highly about it. Anyway, there's some New Irish. Okay, so there's New Ireland. That's what they look like. There's some Irish. There's some Irish people for you, but they're our cousins. So anyway, let's get back. So all of that stuff there. After Elizabeth died, she caused a problem. What kind of problem do you think Elizabeth caused? Well, she didn't have any kids.
No.
Okay, she didn't have any kids. Her mom was murdered by her dad. Raleigh never agreed to marry her and have sex with her and all that kind of stuff so they could have a baby. And she died childless. And that left a huge problem in Britain afterwards because they were fighting again. And there was huge battles between the Catholics and the Protestants. So that means when the Protestants came over to Ireland, it caused awful problems, and they took over Ireland and they stopped us speaking Irish. That's why you're here today learning English, not Irish. Sometimes you might sit at home thinking, Irish people, English people, why am I learning English in Ireland? They have an Irish language, don't they? Does my teacher really speak English? Oh, okay. Yeah. We grew up speaking English. We grew up learning Irish in school. Why? Because Henry couldn't keep it in his pants. That's why you have the Spanish Armada. And if you ever meet Irish people with very dark hair and tanned looks, we call them Black Irish. And we mean that they came from the time of the Spanish Armada. Yeah. They're called Black Irish. So it doesn't mean that there's a black person in their family. It means that there's Spanish blood in there somewhere. You'll meet the odd Irish guy who's got lovely tan. You go, he must be Spanish. No, I'm Irish. Well, is your mom Spanish? Nope. But way, 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 way back, some Irish girl met some Spanish Armada guy and they got busy. Okay. So that's Henry and his 6 wives and his influence on the world. When Cromwell came to Ireland, they wanted all of this land because it was good land. Connacht was crap. So he said, to hell or to Connacht. You live in Connacht. But not far from Ulster. You can see that you're pretty close to Ulster. Donegal is in Ulster. So you're there in Sligo. That's you right now. And just a couple of miles out there. And that's Streega Beach there. Streega is very close to Donegal. And that's where it's all at. Now, this brings us back to this guy. Okay. And I'll play 3 minutes of this, and then IT Sligo guys, I'll let you go, okay?
Can you
That's
please,
why.
Dave Galera.
please
That's why this guy starts the speech with an Irish. Yes, Chris, what you say?
I wanted to get clearly the first word that he has spoken in Irish.
Gia is God in Irish. It's spelt DH. The DH letters mean J. And IA, DHIA, okay, Gia, okay, Gia Yiv, that means God be with you all. Gia Gwich, one person, okay, Gia Yiv, all of you, because he's speaking to the people of Ireland. If he was speaking one-on-one, it should be Gia Gwich, and Gia Yiv to all of you, okay, and that's why here, we have half in the Irish, half in English, because of that long history that I told you about. Okay, that long history is why we still have everything half in Irish, half in English, because we recognize from our history that it is wrong that these people took not only our land, but they took our language. They made it illegal to speak Irish. For years, you weren't allowed to speak Irish. So to this day, the Irish government spends millions and millions and millions of pounds translating, millions of euro, translating documents into half in English, half in Irish. Everything has to be 50-50 to hold our culture. So we don't lose that in modern life. Now that we're a modern country and we have money, let's say, that we're not as poor as we used to be, millions are spent because of our history with England. And if we had a great history with England, maybe we wouldn't have cared about it. But because of that bad history with England, we do care about it. And that's why he starts his speech to the country last night, and the first words have to be Irish.
Dave Galera.
Dave means God be with you. Golair, everybody. Accordia Golair, hello, all of my friends.
Dave Galera. As I speak to you this evening, I'm very conscious that I'm speaking to a country that has endured almost 12 months of COVID-related restrictions. Almost 6,200 of our families, friends and neighbours across the entire island have lost their lives to the disease. I know that people are physically and emotionally exhausted by this pandemic.
Now, can I ask you, Do you remember at the start of my lesson, I said there are barriers to capture?
Yes.
What did he just tell us?
He's trying to pass some condolences to those who have lost their loved.
Okay, that's right. He's passing condolences. Could all of you say that you are paying close attention to him while he was speaking? Well, he's a politician. He's at a lectern. It's easy to lose focus. Plus, he's now speaking for a more sustained period. Okay. And if you were listening to this on the radio, or if I turned off the picture and made you just listen to the sound, if I just left this picture on, or if I left my picture on, and he was just talking, how much of this would you follow? So you've got to stay focused.
It has placed enormous pressure on each of us individually and as a society. Businesses and workers are deeply worried about the future. And we are all completely fed up with the impositions on our lives. What I want to do this evening is set out in clear, straightforward terms where we are, what is going to happen over the next 6 weeks, and where we would like to go from there.
How do you find the accent? Difficult? Easier? Harder?
Very clear.
Very clear, yeah.
Right. So first of all, he's speaking in presentation mode. And you've been surrounded by this accent now for some time. Okay, so it's probably your, like, I know you might say, well, I watch American TV. No, that's fine. But you'll notice now the accent is clear to you. But remember, we're a small country, so it's important to know the Australian accent, the American accent, the British accent, so you can clearly work internationally, that you're not limited to the island of Ireland. Okay, we want you to start here, but grow to having your listening comprehension go to beyond that.
Firstly, it is important to pay tribute to your efforts to suppress the virus since the new year. The sacrifices you have made have had a very positive impact. Steadily and surely, we are driving down the levels of infection. Indeed, our progress in response to the latest wave is among the best in Europe, and I want to thank you for your effort. However, the situation that we, and indeed all of Europe, find ourselves in today is very different to where we were just a short few months ago. The difference, of course, is the emergence of the so-called UK or B117 variant. It is equivalent to a new virus almost, and it is a major problem. In a very short period, it has spread to at least 75 countries around the world, and it is up to 70% more contagious than the original virus.
Okay, so Faith, what message do you take away from that?
He's being sincere about this situation that's happening in Ireland and all around the world.
Right, and what important information did he come up with there? Now, again, I understand for a lot of you to listen to a sustained speech, lack of focus will crumble slightly. You really have to pay attention. What kind of interesting information has come up in this speech? Because some of it is, thank you very much, you've done very well, thank you for staying at home, thank you for losing your business, thank you. And he's on full salary and has just announced that he and all government workers are about to get a 3% salary increase, while people who own bars, restaurants, shops, language schools, we're all close to bankruptcy because we've had to close. So Irish people are in a situation right now where our country after this will be deeply divided, because everybody who worked for the government did very well out of this. They lost not one day's pay, and they even got a price increase. Whereas the people in the private sector, some of us will never ever run our businesses again, and the government will still come and ask us for tax, and the ESB will still come and tell us they'll turn off the electricity if we can't afford to pay it. So we're heading into a deeply divided political time after this as well. What kind of important information did he give us about the virus? If this was an exam question here, I might have let this go on for 1 minute and 46 seconds. And I'd say, what new information has been given about the virus?
The virus, he's talking that people have been in a position to handle, and it has gone down compared to other countries.
Mm-hmm. Something else, though, that's very important, and this again, it brings us back to barriers to capture. Lack of focus here. Now, don't see, this sounds like it's a criticism of you. This is a natural progression. It would happen to me as easily as to you. When somebody's going talking, it's only natural that you might zone out. But in an exam, you'll be tested on your ability to not zone out, like in IELTS style exams. I refer to IELTS because it's an example of international best practice. Okay? It's an example of where they've taken listening skills and they have done very well at testing various aspects of listening skills. And when you're talking about listening, barriers to capture are critical to understand. So yes, I'm waiting for one of you to give me the answer about new updates on the status of the virus. We're 1 minute and 46 seconds in. So if I said to you, I bet you won't be able to answer a 1 minute 46 second question. You'd go, oh, of course I can. I can pay attention for 2 minutes. Can you? Can anybody tell me critical new information? Because the first 130 seconds of this is just saying, well done, everybody. Go Team Ireland. We're doing well compared to our neighbours. I know you're sick and tired of it. I'm personally okay. I got a pay rise yesterday, but a lot of you have lost your businesses, you know, in the private sector. You've gone under. I understand that. But he did tell us something very important in the last 20 seconds.
The 12,000.
You need to speak up, Mahana. Nobody can hear you there.
12,000 families have lost their lives.
That was about a minute ago. But in the last 20 seconds, he said something, and that's why I let it play. I let this play so you guys would fall asleep. Okay? And that's an issue there, okay? Again?
It already spread out in many countries.
Yeah, that's true, but there's new critical information here. So I'll tell you what, we'll go back and we'll do the first 1 minute 48 seconds again.
To Yves Galera, as I speak to you this evening, I'm very conscious that I'm speaking to a country that has endured almost 12 months of COVID-related restrictions. Almost 6,200 of our families, friends and neighbours across the entire island have lost their lives to the disease. I know that people are physically and emotionally exhausted by this pandemic. It has placed enormous pressure on each of us individually and as a society. Businesses and workers are deeply worried about the future, and we are all completely fed up with the impositions on our lives. What I want to do this evening is set out in clear, straightforward terms where we are, what is going to happen over the next 6 weeks, and where we would like to go from there. Firstly, it is important to pay tribute to your efforts to suppress the virus since the new year. The sacrifices you have made have had a very positive impact. Steadily and surely, we are driving down the levels of infection. Indeed, our progress in response to the latest wave is among the best in Europe.
So I said 2 minutes and we're already at 1 minute 14 seconds. But as a politician, he's going through all the etiquette, the niceties, the well done, the thank you, good job.
And I want to thank you for your effort. However, the situation that we and indeed all of your...
the but family. However, okay. Remember the old saying, anything comes before but is changed after but, okay? Anything that comes before but isn't important. He's just said, however. Now you need to pay attention.
I want to thank you for your effort. However, the situation that we and indeed all of Europe find ourselves in today is very different to where we were just a short few months ago. The difference, of course, is the emergence of the so-called UK or B117 variant. It is equivalent to a new virus almost, and it is a major problem. In a very short period, it has spread to at least 75 countries around the world, and it is up to 70% more contagious than the original virus. Up to 90% of new infections in this country are from this new variant. The truth is that it has changed the dynamic significantly, and we need to be very careful as we take the next steps forward.
There you go. 2 minutes. Now, this time, because I told you about it, I think a few of you will have been paying attention to the question, what new developments did he mention in the first 2 minutes?
Can I try now?
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, he's saying that the situation has become different because we have the new variants of this virus that has B17.
Yes, the new variant of the virus. How is it similar? How did he describe its similarity to the original virus?
It is different, and it seemed to be very spreading more than
how
the
different?
original one.
65% of contagion.
75%.
Well, he said 75 countries.
75 countries, yeah.
It spread to 75 countries. Mohana, what are you saying? Mohana, your microphone's very weak. You need to speak up very loudly there.
He said it's up to 70% more contagious.
Can't hear you, Mohana.
He said it's up to 70% more contagious.
Up to 90% of new infections in this country, the original 5 countries around the world, and it is
90%.
is equivalent to a new virus almost.
Now, what did he say?
90%.
Yeah, and now listen.
Or B117 variant. It is equivalent to a new virus almost.
What did he say there?
It
is equivalent to a new variant almost.
Or B117 variant.
Like it's like.
So what does it is equivalent to mean?
It's equivalent to almost a new one developing.
Well, no, what does the phrase "it is equivalent to"?
Similar to.
Again?
Similar to.
Similar to, or almost the same as, yeah.
It is equivalent to a new virus almost, and it is a major problem.
So what he's been telling us here of what the new data he's telling us here is that COVID as we knew it has now had a baby basically, and it's a completely new one. Okay. And they're connecting it to Britain. Okay. And this is going to cause further shutdowns. Now, the reason I chose this video, and I know some of you have to go now, but the reason I chose this video is very relevant to your life. Okay. It's important to know exactly what's going on with COVID, because you know yourself, when you're a foreigner in another country, you mightn't be that interested in what the Prime Minister of the country is saying. But this is a good opportunity in class to now know, if you had went for a cup of coffee with a friend, you could give very exact details about this and say, geez, you're very well informed. I did it in English class, okay? But you can now slow it down, repeat it, go back over it, and catch the main details. In an Irish situation, in an IELTS situation, they would be asking you very specific details. How many countries has it spread to? 75, 90, or 65?
75.
Very good. Well done, Naomi.
Very different to where we were just a short few months ago. The difference, of course, is the emergence of the so-called UK or B117 variant. It is equivalent to a new virus almost, and it is a major problem. In a very short period, it has spread to at least 75 countries around the world, and it is up to 70% more contagious than the original virus. Up to 90% of new infections in this country are from this new variant. The truth is...
Now, as the person, sometimes when you're doing exams, you have to think about the way the person who designs the exam thinks. What do you think I'm thinking in this section when he's speaking? I'll be designing your test.
At least 75 countries around the problem. In a very short period, it has spread to at least 75 countries around the world, and it is up to 70% more contagious than the original virus. Up to 90% of new infections in this country are from this new variant.
What do you think an exam designer would be thinking in that last 2 minutes, or sorry, last 20 seconds?
First, you will be asking about the percentage that maybe people have been affected.
Yeah. And what percentages did we hear?
90%.
90%. What else?
And 75 countries.
75 countries.
70%.
And 70% of
more contagious. Now, what I'd probably do is, because how many times are you going to hear this?
One.
Exactly. So even for me, that's challenging to get it once. So that's why I said to you that when I do the exam with you guys, if we all went to Dublin together and we did IELTS, I'd find that challenging as well. I only get to hear it one time, and I have to remember which one was 70, which one was 75, which one was 90. But that's how they'll design the exam, so that when you come out with 5.5 or 6 or 6.5 or 7 in the listening, it's a measurement of, how well you can pay attention, how well you can focus. It's not just about your English language skills. You could have fantastic native speaker level English language skills and still only get 6.5 or 7 in the listening exam. It tests your listening skills, not just your language skills. They're not always the same thing. Yeah.
JJ, you have to leave, please.
You got to go. No problem. I assume all of the IT Sligo guys have to go, do you?
Yeah, we have.
That's fine. You shoot
We have
now.
an
That's
exam.
fine.
Thank you.
No problem. I'll see you
Thank
all
you, boy.
tomorrow morning. We'll take this up further. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The rest of you guys, take 15 minutes there, and we'll come back and review some of this, take some of your questions, and go over some of yesterday's material when we come back. Okay.
Okay.
Just leave your microphone on. Sorry, leave your speaker on, so when I come back, you can hear me, and I'll tell you I'm back. Okay.
Okay.
Lovely. I hope this now doesn't cause a copyright issue with RTE, but we'll see.
Course of the last year, and explain where we go from here. Essentially, to open up our country safely, we need to keep the numbers of new infections low and accelerate the vaccination programme in line with improving supply. The way forward is broadly split into 2 phases: the situation up to the 5th of April and the...
Okay, now, that was a quote from the transcript. Okay, now the examiner will often focus on a small word like to. And he'll say, to equals in order to. Okay. And he might say, will I put a question with in order to? Okay. And will I use different words, or will I ask what the purpose of to is? So I might say to I could say is used to explain intent, a plan. Okay. Now, if that was the question, I could go with a question like this to you guys. I could say, that could be the question. Now, what's the key word in the question? Plan. And what does it connect to? To. Why? To is from the to family, and the to family is used to explain intent or a plan. So what does the government see as its plan going forward? And that connects to. Now that's tricky, but that's common in listening exams, okay? And they expect you to be able to see the individual words and be able to visualize what he's talking about. And as part of that visualization, you'll have to pay attention to the small, tiny word like to here, like I'm going to town. But that's not the meaning of to. Here, it's a to link word. And you very correctly said in order to. Now, I could give you a different style question. In that question, your answer will be like a written answer, comprehension. So you could write your answer there. Or I could ask a different style of question. I could say true or false, yes, no, not given. The government intends to
vaccine.
No.
Vaccine.
Well, I'll probably use that as well. To keep the number of new infections low, how will I do a synonym correlation of that? Well, I would say prevent any rise in new cases. So look, prevent in this context is keep. Okay. They said new infections. New infections means new cases. Low, well, keep and then ... Low ... is prevent any rise. Okay. To, the government intends to. So here he says to. And that means intends to. So what is written in the question has been spoken in a synonymous way in the text, in the transcript, in the recording. So the government intends to prevent any rise in new cases and accelerate the vaccination program in line with new supply. Let's take that one. Now, what would I do with accelerate? Accelerate could be speed up. The vaccination program, I could turn that into something like treatment or prevention, no, treatment, delivery of injections, something like that, in line with. I could change that into along with. Or I might say ensure, okay, and improving supply. Here he doesn't mean they need to improve it. He means to say an increase an increase in availability. Okay, now I'll need to put together a sample red sentence. See, that's what this sentence means. Keep the number of new infections low. The government intends to prevent any rise in new cases. How do I know the government? Well, the guy who's speaking is the Prime Minister, and he's saying we. So it's the government. Accelerate the vaccination program. So we need to speed up delivery of injections, along with an increase in availability. In other words, if we get more injections delivered to us, more vaccinations, we'll do 2,000 people a day, 3,000 people a day. Okay. Now, we might say yes, no, not given question. Yes, no, not given. Okay. And yes, no, not given here could be the government intends to prevent any rise in cases in addition to, because look, he said, and. If we use in addition to, which verb form comes after in addition to? Anybody? Speeding up. Now, this sentence is a synonymous version of this sentence. And another skill, okay, where do I put this? Synonym correlation is exam designers will paraphrase sections of the recording with synonymous language. And they expect students to see the similarity or difference in meaning. This tests your lexical resource. This tests your lexical resource. Some questions will test your visualization skills, and some questions will test your lexical resource. What does lexical resource mean? How many words you know? Okay. Pedro, give me 2 other words for significant. The 3 sisters. Significant.
Contribute to.
And that's a phrase, significant contributing factor. No, but give me 2 other words that mean significant. And I used to call them the 3 sisters. One of the sisters is significant. Sub. It's the same word in Portuguese.
Substantial.
Substantial. And the other one is
consubstantial.
Considerable.
Considerable.
And they have a big brother, Emer, called They have a big brother called, he's a rank in the army.
Generally.
No, he's lower than generally. Begins with M.
Major.
Major. And they have a little brother called the opposite of major.
Minor.
English pronunciation.
Minor.
Minor. Okay. So if somebody says major in the text, the exam designer is going to go, ooh, that's nice. I could design this question before I go to lunch. I'll see if they know another word for major or the opposite of major. Okay. So in a way, it's synonym. What's the opposite of synonym? Antonym. An antonym is synonym. It's the opposite of synonym. So sometimes they're looking to know that, to see that you know the opposite of major is minor. And that might be in a yes, no, not given question. So for example, the Taoiseach feels that this is a minor problem. Yes, no, not given.
Yes.
Made have had a very positive impact. Steadily and surely, we are driving down the levels of infection. Indeed, our progress in response to the latest wave is among the best in Europe, and I want to thank you for your effort. However, the situation that we and indeed all of Europe find ourselves in today is very different to where we were just a short few months ago. The difference, of course, is the emergence of the so-called UK or B117 variant. It is equivalent to a new virus almost, and it is a major problem.
It's a major problem.
It's a major problem. Okay. So they might give you an antonym of major. Will they say problem? Problem's very easy to catch, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's a synonym of problem?
Issue.
Yeah. So a yes, no, not given question might be something like the Taoiseach feels.
John, when the government changed the Taoiseach, I thought there was another guy. Was recently, is it?
Yeah. We have a weird situation at the moment because of COVID. The two top parties, we had an election, and all of these people, this guy that you're looking at is Micheál Martin, okay? And because, you know, he wants to feel Irish, his name is Micheál, okay? And there'll be an A. His A will have a father like that, okay? So his name is Micheál Martin. Micheál. In Polish, Michał. In Irish, Micheál. In English, Michael. Okay. And in Spanish?
Michael is as well.
Not Miguel?
Oh, yeah, Miguel, but it's different spelling.
Ah, okay. But is Miguel Michael?
Yeah.
Okay.
Miguel.
So Miguel, Micheál, Michał, Michael. You can see this combination of how the Catholic religion spread things.
Yeah.
Okay. So Micheál Martin, he's the current Taoiseach. And Leo Varadkar, our gay Indian president, he was the previous Taoiseach.
Oh, okay. That's what I...
And this guy is from a party called Fianna Fáil. And when Michael Collins came back, these were the anti-treaty party. These were the guys who left the Dáil, and Leo Varadkar is with Fine Gael or Fine Gael. And Fine Gael is the pro-treaty party. So when they came back from the meeting with Winston Churchill and Lloyd George and all of those guys, Winston Churchill was quite young at the time. We remember him later as an older statesman during World War II. But in 1919, He was a British civil servant and adventurer. Okay. So Michael Collins belonged to this pro-treaty group. They weren't called Fine Gael at the time, but Fine Gael would come out of the pro-treaty and Fianna Fáil would come out of the anti-treaty side. And then at the time, a lot of people were focused on, I forget the name, who's the head of this party. A lot of people were focused on workers' rights, kind of like communism, and they became Labour. Okay, I forget what Labour were. I think we're pro-treaty and anti-treaty. They split inside themselves. I think they were both. Okay, but they were more focused on what about working people? What about poor people living in slums in Dublin? What about all the disease? I forget the guy's name. He's also a big politician now. And then we had, so this is Fianna Fáil, this is Fine Gael, this is Labour, and the next one, no, sorry, he's not Taoiseach. He's some other position, okay? Labour, and this one here was Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin is an Irish word that means ourselves alone, okay? And they were also anti-treaty, okay? They were an anti-treaty party. So all of these politicians you see today talking about COVID come from the split the day Michael Collins came back and said, look, I've talked to Lloyd George. It's not perfect, but it's a stepping stone. We can end the war with England now, and we can go on to a peace, and then we can build later. And the other guys goes, fuck that and fuck you, and we're all out of here. We're out of here. And he goes, no, don't leave the Dáil. The Dáil is the Parliament. The Dáil. So if you're ever in Dublin and you're asking for, that's like Westminster in Ireland, in Dublin. The Dáil means government buildings. The government building, the Parliament, really. That means the Parliament. But we never say Parliament. Why? Because that reminds us of the British. So we don't use it. And we won't say Prime Minister because that's British. So we won't say it. So that's why the Americans didn't have a king. They wanted a president. And they didn't want the pound. They wanted the dollar. So when the British left, people went, ugh. And they, wanted to get rid of them. Okay. So the Dáil is our Parliament. Okay. And we also call it Dáil Éireann. Okay. In other words, the Parliament of Ireland. And if you ever travel on the bus, you'll see Bus Éireann. Okay. You'll see Bus Éireann. That means the bus company of Ireland or the bus of Ireland. Okay. So the Dáil Éireann, that's the Parliament. Micheál Martin is the Taoiseach. Leo Varadkar was also the Taoiseach. Now, these two guys are sharing the role of Taoiseach. Okay. 6 months on, 6 months off. First time in history. I don't know if it's 6 months, but it's a period on, a period off. And Leo Varadkar was Prime Minister. They had an election, and these guys did very well. Okay, these guys, Sinn Féin, were an anti-treaty party. However, in modern times, they are associated with, who do you think? They're associated with the IRA. IRA, that's what you probably remember them as. Do you remember that name?
Yeah.
And they were a terrorist organization. If you were against them and if you were for them, you'd say they were freedom fighters, depending on which side of the fence you're on. Okay. Now, a lot of people in Ireland don't like Sinn Féin, but they are growing in popularity. They're kind of not dissimilar to Trump's rise. Everybody in the media hates them. Everybody's going, oh, the shinners. But somebody's voting for them. Okay. Now, the reason that somebody's voting for them is they're very active in communities. These guys are fat and happy. If you go to these guys with a problem, they go, it's difficult, you know, it's hard to do anything about that. But look, I'm sorry. And you're a lovely fella and I'd like to help you, but I can't. But these guys, the first thing they'll do is take out a notebook. They'll start writing down what you say and they'll get back to you in 6 weeks. They're very disciplined. So as community activists, this party is growing because they're a very disciplined. You can see how they might have been an army in the past, but they approach it in the same way now. You know, and you can't be a Sinn Féiner unless you prove yourself to them that you have the ability. Now, you could be a guy who sweeps the streets, or you could be a university professor, but if you can prove that you've got drive and vision and you can argue on the radio or on the TV logically, they'll take you on. Okay. And you say, yeah, but what if I'm gay? They don't care. Oh, well, what if I'm from Honduras? They might take you on if you're from Honduras, if you got your visa in order and there's no blockage to you. They might, but aren't they like pro-Ireland? Yeah, but they're clever. They're very clever. Okay. So this party are growing. And in the last election, these guys went from small, medium, large to now almost as big as these two guys. And what happened? These guys, and the Green Party. Ooh. Okay, I shouldn't say that. The Green Party, they took over as well. So now the Green Party, Fine Gael, and Fianna Fáil, these are in power. Now, only Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are sharing it. They told the Green Party, you can come in with us, but fuck off. You're not being Taoiseach. Oh, hey, listen, you're lucky to be in government. Okay. Okay, so the Green Party, and these are, of course, the environmentalists. Okay.
Sorry, Gender.
Yeah.
Just go because I received a message.
That's fine. Not to worry. Not to worry. You have to go now, do you?
Yeah.
That's no problem. Sure. I'll see you tomorrow then. So.
Okay.
All right. Take care, Emer. Bye bye. Bye bye. Pedro, sorry, are you still there, Pedro?